Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of August 15th, 2019. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome, everyone. We have a very full agenda tonight, so we're going to attempt to be efficient. First, I'd like a motion, please, regarding item.
7N out of order.
Yes,
Madam Chair, I'd like to
please.
make a motion to take item 7N out of order.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Item 7N is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 61 Center Street, Town of Burlington is the applicant.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the Planning Board meeting of September 19th, 2019, as requested by the applicant.
Madam Chair, can I just
Second.
correct that? I spoke with the Tom Hayes, town engineer. He asked for the first meeting in October.
October
Oh.
3rd.
That will be October 3rd.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Moved and seconded with the revised date of October 3rd. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. And next, we have citizens' time. Is there someone in the audience that would like to speak on a matter that is not on our agenda? Please come forward. Come.
Frank.
And we know who you are, but please state your name for the record and pull that mic nice and close.
Hi, I'm Dave Miller from Gloria Circle, also a town meeting member from Precinct 4. Back on July 25th, we had the planning department, building department, and engineering department come to a walkthrough on 5 Dartmouth Road, which is part of the General Walker Estates, to look at some issues that some of my neighbors and I had seen, and I was just wondering if there was any follow-up or any result of that walkthrough.
Thank you. Staff?
Sure. And I did receive Mr. Miller's email today, and I apologize getting ready for this prep. I didn't get a chance to get back, respond to the email. So we did go out there on the 25th with building, engineering, a couple of people from engineering. Who else came out with us? The rest of the planning staff and conservation. To take a look at, there's been a lot of complaints. We said, okay, we just need to get eyes on what's going on out here. There were some obvious things that came out. The driveway grading on the house closest to the Millers goes back to the site and actually grades down toward the kind of the swale between the two properties, which needs to be remedied. There's also a riprap outlet to the infiltration system that wasn't obvious in the field, and there were some downspout connections that were not connected properly. So we have had discussions with the property owner on those items and remedies, and we also asked the engineer to take a look at where the riprap outlet's supposed to be for the drainage system and make sure that it's was built and functions as intended, and if it's not, what is it doing? So I can't say that they've 100% been remedied yet, but that communication has happened. We're waiting for a report from the engineer on that investigation with the riprap, and that's where we are. So
Has the developer replied to your communication?
we've had the communication directly with the developer. I don't have a timeline yet on the remedy,
Okay.
but hopefully shortly.
Is there a CO on the property?
Couple houses.
The lots have been released, but I presume.
Yes,
but this-
on the far house,
The first
the
two
first,
houses on the right.
there's the first two houses, so yes, and the second one is where some of these issues have occurred. But no one has moved in yet.
So
but
we
they
have,
do have a CO on it.
Yes, but they still have to fix these issues.
so we don't have, there are no certificates of occupancy that we have not yet signed off on?
There are three that
Three,
you have not
okay.
yet signed off.
So we do have that leverage, that's
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
Actually,
For
four.
sure. Four?
Four.
There's
That's
five.
what I thought, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one issue, I'm not sure if I heard it, When a couple of my neighbors and I met with the building inspector, I think back in April, and we were telling him about some things, and we told him we saw the developer taking truckload after truckload of soil and dumping it over the infiltration system, and to us, it looked like he raised the grade by a foot or two from what it was. And sort of the only visual line of reference along the property line between 5 Dartmouth and my property is a rock wall, sort of just boulders making a wall. And before the work was done, the level of the soil was even with the top of the rocks. Now you can see it's quite a bit up. Also, there were 2 turquoise tubes coming up from the infiltration system. You could see the level of the soil against the tube before the work and after the work. And what was really interesting about this, when we talked to Andy Ungerson, he said he was taken aback because he said that property was signed off and certified several weeks before that, so no work was supposed to have happened on that property afterwards. So all that raising of the grade happened after the property was signed off. So I don't know if you found that the grade was raised significantly, because we're concerned about all that
Yeah,
water.
the
And why was-
grading where the structures exist, the structures themselves were constructed to, within millimeters of where they were supposed to, but the grades around them have shifted. And that's where we think what might have happened with the riprap is that they, all that work that was done after the CO, that they covered up some of those items. So
But is
yes,
there any-
I didn't say that, and that is one of the questions.
But is there anything, I guess, the thing that sort of always angers me is the fact that the developer did work on the property after things were signed off, and he shouldn't have been doing any work, and nothing happens. I don't know.
Well-
That just frustrates me.
That is that's part of the remedy that we are pursuing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I know this has been very difficult for your whole neighborhood. This has been a trial for all of you, and I hope this can be resolved quickly. I appreciate you staying on top of it and keeping us informed.
Yeah, it's been a long battle. It's been over 2 years now, and there's only 2 houses up.
And not done correctly.
They're not done correctly, correct?
We've also reminded them, since the last time they were here, you were very firm in asking them for a timeline of construction for the rest of the units, or rest of the housing. And I don't have that yet, but we also have reminded them of that piece.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing besides, after the walkthrough happened, I had Kristen, Tom Hayes from engineering, and Tim from engineering came to my house because our garage floor, one of our garage floors is made up of pavers. And when they started building the houses, we noticed in the morning when we pull the car out where the 4 tires were, we could see damp spots. Then once the houses all got built, now we pull the car out, you can see there's almost permanently just damp tracks there. So obviously there's a water issue that started and has continued since they constructed there. I don't know what can be done about it, but, we've lived in that house for 40 years and never had a problem until those houses went in.
So, Kristen, the changes that have to be made as part of your communication with them, would those possibly resolve the problem that Mr. Miller is having?
We're still investigating that.
Okay.
It's just in terms of the water flow and why there would be those issues in the garage. And we did look, Tom Hayes and I did go to the garage and take a look.
Are your other neighbors also having water issues inside
They
their
have more
homes?
water issues than they've had. Our backyards are pooling more than they have in the past, yes.
Okay.
If
All right.
they've elevated the topography there, and the water is now running from
Right.
their lot onto the neighbors, that has to be remedied. They can't do that, even if they have to go in and excavate that soil back out. That's,
Well, and that's one of the things, we're just looking at direction of flows. I mean, the driveway is clearly an issue. The driveway pitches 100% toward these properties.
but if the whole elevation is such that it's causing, runoff,
Downhill.
or if it's creating pooling somewhere, which is increasing the groundwater level, which may be contributing to the problem in their garage and other yards,
I agree, I just don't have a definitive answer yet, so.
So who is Tom Hayes or the building inspector, who's actually chasing it down, do you know?
Well, in our communication with the engineer, we're looking for them to take a look at the whole system of runoff as it functions and compared to what we approved in the subdivision, and to make sure the grades are where they're supposed to be.
And are we holding any bond or surety or anything? We are, okay.
Has Andy been down there when you're?
Yep, Andy was there with us that day when we took the walk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Miller. I'm sorry we don't have a more definitive answer for you, but I think we'll stay on top of it and we'll
Okay, I
work toward
appreciate
an
it.
answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is announcements.
Madam Chair, I have to make a note that I missed the last meeting, but I did the DVD so I can vote on everything.
Okay, thank you,
Sign.
thank you. Announcements?
I wasn't sure if Member Impemba also
Member-
wanted to make that
yes.
statement.
Okay,
And any forms, if they haven't been signed, or should be in the front of your books
okay.
to sign. Announcements. The zoning bylaw review committee will meet on August 28th at 6 o'clock in the annex basement meeting room to continue discussion on the Northwest Park housing amendment. They also, between land use and zoning bylaw review, have come up with an outline kind of matrix of how we're all going to work together and review. I did receive it this week. I haven't reviewed it fully yet to be able to give comment, but look forward to this board and those boards having conversations about how best to work through applications as they come in. We also, which we will discuss during the Northwest Park housing amendment, we have set up a meeting with members of the selectmen, the assessor, and the council on aging to further discuss some just different creative and innovative methods to try to include senior affordable housing options within Northwest Park. So again, we'll talk about that more then, but that will be held on August 27th at 12 noon in the annex basement meeting room.
Thank you.
That's a planning board subcommittee meeting?
I don't think it
Or
is,
that's-
it's just a meeting of all the parties that have to come together to work
Yeah,
this out, really.
I mean, it could be, I'm not sure how exactly I'm going to post it, but I just wanted to announce that it was happening, so you, at this point, when we post it, we'll definitively decide. That's all the announcements I have.
Thank you. Member Raymond?
Yes, I just wanted to note, not many people read the paper anymore, but there was a significant article in the Boston Globe. As you can see, it was the whole page and down. And what it was is the state wanted to know where new housing was coming from. And it turns out there were 15 towns or cities that produced half the housing in the state between 2013 and 2017. And interestingly enough, there was one town, the second one out of the first 8 was the town of Plymouth, which is a very large town, but number 8 was the town of Burlington. So sometimes it's nice to pat yourself on the back, but among the other things we've done is contributing to the need for new housing. And I thought that was significant and nice to know, and a credit to the town.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do not have any legal notices or non-approvals, so we're going to move on to item 6 on our agenda, administrative matters. Item 6A is a discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 154 Cambridge Street, the shops at Simons Park. Steam Kids LLC is the applicant. Welcome, and please state your names for the record.
My name is Deepak Mudakavi.
I am Steve Duffy from Duffy Properties, the landlord.
And Marissa Valentino from BSC Group.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think when you talk about Simons Park,
The
that's
shops at Simons, yes.
yes, shops at Simons, I think you ought to let the people know we're talking about the development.
Yes, the development,
Because when you say shops at Simons Park,
good point. This is the development at the former Building 19 site, which will, I think soon everyone will get used to saying the shops at Simons. And please, we're looking mainly for an update as to what has occurred since the last meeting.
So at the last meeting, I think the board had asked for some additional details. One of the first one was details on the fence that would be surrounding the play area. The fence will be a solid vinyl fence, selected to match the rest of the fence on the site, so probably a white vinyl fence. Additionally, some details on the play structure. We've provided some typical play structure details. The final play structure will be selected based on state permitting, but that's some typical details. The next item was the student and faculty. So,
Actually, before we move on from the play structure, could you just quickly tell us what the highest point is on the play structure and also what the surface will be at the bottom?
sure, so the maximum fall height is 7 feet 6 inches.
Okay.
And I believe it's a rubberized mat.
Yeah, it's called pour in place. It's like the rubber mat you see
Okay.
in some of the parks, and they have to be a certain width as per state guidelines for licensing,
Okay, thank
based on the
you.
maximum fall height.
Thank you. Okay.
So I think a lot of the discussion was about the student and faculty. And we've provided a breakdown of the student and faculty per hour. So if I can just go through this chart.
Tilt that a little bit.
What's that?
You just tilt that a little bit
Yeah.
that way. Perfect, thanks.
So on the left is the number of students, which corresponds to this blue line. So as you can see, the maximum number of students happens between around 8:30 and 11 a.m. This corresponds to their full day and half day programs, and as the day continues, the numbers drop off. Same thing with faculty. That's this orange line, and at a maximum, there are 12 faculty.
Okay, and
The faculty is on the right, students on the left, so the orange line where it is right with the blue doesn't mean the same number of faculty as students.
Correct, so
Okay, it's
the
deceiving.
the orange line corresponds with these numbers on the right. So if you follow it across, it's 12. And then the blue line corresponds with everything on the left, the number of students.
So at a point where the lines cross, they're at, say, 11:30, two lines in the exact same place, but what is the number of students and what is the number of faculty, so we know that maximum ratio?
The number of students is.
Right
ni-
there, yeah, right there. Yeah.
Is, the maximum number is 93,
97.
97, and then the maximum number of faculty is 12.
Okay.
And that's based on, that's both their part-time and full-time programs. So that's, part-time program runs
Yeah,
till
if,
11:30.
yeah, if I may just clarify that a little bit. So we have many centers around the U.S., and so we're pretty familiar with city concerns about all parents coming in together. So what we do is we have multiple programs. So we have full-day programs, half-day programs, and part-time programs. So the full-day programs usually will start at as early as 7 a.m. The half-day programs will start at 8:30. So we have a staggered approach, and then the part-time program starts at 9. And this helps with parents coming in at different times. It makes it more manageable for us to take students in as well. So that's how it's structured. So, and the same for when release times. They release at different times of the day based on those programs.
Okay, so we talked about the pickup and drop-off procedure the last time you were here. I think we also had discussed employee parking. Have you resolved that question?
So the employee, I'll let Stephen have to take this.
I own several retail plazas. Occasionally, it comes up where parking's tight. You know, it might be, I believe it's 4 to 4.5 in the per thousand for the town of Burlington. occasionally I've had to have a situation where I've told employees or told the employer to have their employees park someplace else. So I'm not quite sure whether this might be a problem. If it is a problem, we'll have to address it with the tenant. If it starts to impact, if it starts to impact the other tenants in the park. So we'll have language in the lease, and we do have language in the lease where we try to make accommodations for the employees in the park and where they park.
Right, when I said that, I wasn't implying that they should park at a different site, but rather that you should have employees park not right in the front of the building where parents are dropping off and picking up, but I believe there was an area indicated on the site plan on the right side of the building where employees could park, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. And I didn't mean to imply that I would have them park off-site.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure what you
Yeah.
meant by that,
No,
thank you.
and obviously, if the employees are going to be there through most of the day, we'll try to identify an area and work with the tenant to have them park.
Sorry, our priority is parents with little ones, when they come in, and we don't want them to be walking. These are 2-year-olds,
Right.
right? So we don't want them to be walking long distances. So we make sure we instruct all our employees to not park in front of the main entrance where parents enter in. So we have that as part of our policies.
Okay, do we,
So, yeah, Madam Chair, we do have a condition that's modified for Safari Kids, but that we use in almost every other multi-tenant shopping area, where the planning board requires that employees park in spaces in the center or far right parking area, not in the prime spaces within the parking area, with the exception of any employees with, handicap plates or placards. And that a plan showing where those, non-prime spaces are, be communicated to the employees and be enforced by the manager, director, and property owner. Just as I said, these areas are always, there's perceived parking issues all the time because there's not parking right in front. So just be aware of any of the tenants and just to be actively managing the site. This is the first tenant, and the one thing I said at the last meeting, and I've said since, is, we don't want to be marking off a whole bunch of spaces of this tenant and this
Right.
tenant only can use these spaces. They do have 3 spaces for pickup and drop-off that we've asked to at least put times that those are to be used for Safari Kids. I think certainly the owner and the property owner should be, and I believe is, managing parking needs and parking and throughout the site, and just want to make sure that it's communicated from us to them and in this decision that we want
Right.
oversight to make sure that all that it works with everybody. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jack, do you have any questions?
I'm just looking for the condition about the dumpster and where the stinky diapers are going and when.
I saw that in
I
here
don't
somewhere.
see it in the conditions, I don't see it on the plan.
So there will be individual containers within the center that will contain all the trash.
Within the perimeter of the daycare inside
Yes,
their
inside.
space, the tenant space,
Yep.
okay?
And everything will be disposed of in accordance with local and state regulations.
Which are what?
We spoke to the Board of Health, and there are no Board of Health regulations, but we're still exploring state regulations.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to determine is, at some point in time, they're going to exit that facility, and I can just think in this weather, if they're outside and at one corner or another of the building or in the back, the proximity to the neighbors is close, and odors can drift, so I'm just wondering how you are going to protect those neighbors from that risk or that hazard. And I don't see it in the conditions or on either plan.
They're going to be stored indoors, are they not?
They're going to be stored indoors until
Forever?
they are brought outside to the enclosed dumpster area.
How often will they be brought out to the enclosed dumpster, and how often will the dumpster be picked up?
So they are going to be stored in something like a diaper genie, where each diaper is sealed individually so that there's no odor, I guess, coming out. We will be taking it out daily because we have to, when we clean up, we'll be taking it out daily. Again, I'm not sure.
You'll be taking them out and putting them in the dumpster daily,
Yes,
and the dumpster will be picked up daily?
that I do not know. I do not know the answer
I'm
to
sure
that.
that's probably outside of your control, but perhaps Mr. Duffy knows?
Again, I don't know how often it'll be picked up. We're not talking 5 days later. We might be talking over a 3-day period. Again, it all sort of depends on how much trash is generated by the tenants in that particular building.
A dumpster with the sun hitting it is like an oven, and
Well, this
kinda
is-
like your car. I don't know how long you'd want to keep those in your car in the sunny parking lot.
So this dumpster area is enclosed as part of the building.
It's inside the building?
It's
the
it's an
dumpster?
alcove in the building, yeah.
So it's inside the exterior walls of the building, the dumpster?
It is, there's an exterior wall and it is a niche inside the building and then
Open to the
closed
sky
off.
or not?
It's not open to the sky.
No.
And it has a gate. Now, it's not completely, excuse me, it's not hermetically sealed, but it is in a secure location.
So is it 3 walls, a roof, and a gate?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. But as long, I just want to make sure that we have in our decision that until they're put in the dumpster, they're stored indoors. They can't be stored outdoors on that little walkway.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can certainly put that.
certainly agreed with that.
I think those, if it's a diaper genie, those things are they're pretty foolproof. I don't think when you've got those things twisted up in there, as long as they're done the right way, there shouldn't be any odors coming out of them.
Maybe they've gotten better since I had a baby, I don't know.
But that's inside their daycare. I'm not concerned of their problem inside the daycare. I'm concerned the problem of the dumpster.
Right, we
which
understand.
Can be odoriferous to the neighbors who are very close.
Well, maybe we put in a
And I have
condition,
not heard an answer yet that satisfies me.
well, perhaps we can put a condition in that the dumpster needs to be emptied frequently, and if odor becomes a problem, you'd have to come back to us and come up with another plan for a more frequent removal.
Can I get an elaboration what a diaper genie is? It's
I'll
the
explain it to
container,
you later.
They all go into the diapers, or is each diaper put into a container?
We used to call them diaper pails when we
Yeah,
had kids.
No,
But I think they're talking about something
No,
different.
Well,
yeah,
it goes into a plastic container and it gets twisted, so there's literally it's
It's
sealed in plastic.
That's what I'm asking.
When it comes out, it's like
Typically,
giant
my experience
diaper
is you don't get odors
sausage
out of
links.
those, for the most part. but-
That's what they look like.
I withdraw my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Paul?
No, I was just wondering, what's the maximum number of clients that you'll have in the building when, the early, middle, and late people and so forth are coming back and forth?
When you say clients, are you referring to children?
Children, yeah.
Children? The maximum number of children at the facility?
Mhm.
The maximum number would be 97.
So there'd be 97 children in that building being taken care of at one time.
Yes. That's the maximum possible number, yeah.
And how many faculty will be there at that time, or whatever, 12?
12.
12, yeah, and the maximum number is only between, 8:30 and 11:30.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
we have
Yeah.
different programs so that, so the part-timers, for example, there's about 24 part-time students that will leave when their program ends at 12 o'clock, so then,
no, I think it's going to be interesting, because with that number of children coming and going and so forth, there's going to be a lot of activity in that corner. I see there are 2 spots for the pickup and drop-off and so forth, but, we'll see.
yeah, so, and again, typically, the way the operations are run, parents come in, they drop off the children, they sign in the children, and then they leave. If they want to discuss, certain, progress of the child or evaluations or so forth, then we structure, parent meetings, which are at different times of the day. So most of the parking, when it's being used, is, they're in, they sign in, they go out, it's less than 5 minutes. A parent is coming and dropping. Usually, they're on their way to work, and so they're in a hurry anyways.
Is there anybody outside the building so that when somebody comes in, pulls in, and a child gets out and starts running across, will there be anybody from your staff that will be outside of the building, just, observing and making sure that that's a safe situation?
So it really is the parents' responsibility to get the children inside, but we do usually have, at the front desk, we do have people inside there, and at some sites if there's a lot of students coming in together, we will have, 1 or 2 staff members outside helping the parents get the children inside.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Joe?
So the one question I have is more geared around the spots. So you've got some parallel parking in front of that location. My only concern with that, with the spots generally in front of that location where the door is, would be kids in and out and going between cars, and is there gonna be a designated spot that there is no parking where, they're gonna be able to cross that area? Or are they gonna all walk down to the center where the crosswalk is? Or how is the people coming and going with their kids? Are they gonna be having to walk between cars to get out into the,
So-
into the?
So we provided this brick sidewalk, crosswalk, and the idea is that parents would park in this row of parking or even over here and use this brick crosswalk to directly get access to
That's
the
not
sidewalk.
I
what
don't
we're
see
looking
that.
at.
How do we have that?
So
Okay,
let me
thank you.
clarify.
So the,
It's on the big plan, okay.
Yeah, the big plan is their proposed plan. I asked them to bring the landscape plan,
Okay.
which is the original landscape plan,
Okay.
to show where the landscaping in the back was. So I apologize if there was
It's okay.
confusion, but it's the big single
Thank you.
sheet.
So with that, so that's a brick walkway, is that what it is?
yep,
Is
yeah,
there-
to match the rest of the site.
Is there any way, how they have traffic, some sort of, a lot of times they'll have traffic, whether they're A-frame traffic things or whatever, stopping traffic on that, to make sure that every car stops there regardless of whether there are kids in the walkway or not, or people in the walkway or not, just everyone stops and then checks and then moves.
So just a
So-
temporary sign.
Well, even, maybe even temporary, if it's whenever at the times that people are picking up and dropping off, maybe those go out there and make sure traffic stops in both directions regardless of whether there are people in the walkway, just to assure that,
Yeah, Leahy
Can
has
certainly
something
provide
like
that.
don't they? By the garage.
what's that?
I think Leahy has something similar to
Yeah.
that by the garage.
Yeah, they used to actually have it here in the center of town, right across from the, I think a resident had bought a few of those for the police department. They used to put them out right at the town hall. I think, in fact, Debbie Harrington, I think, bought a bunch of them for the police department, and they used to locate them in certain areas so that, when, during concerts and things like that, they'd put them on the walkway so that people would literally stop whether there was somebody in there or not, and then they would proceed once they realized nobody was in the walkway.
Yeah, we can certainly provide those.
Yeah. Aside from that, I can, share the concern with the diaper genie and the magical stuff that comes out of that, but aside from that, the plaza is really, really coming along well. You guys are doing a great job over there. We should commend it for that, honestly. I think it's really coming along, and I can't wait for it to be open.
We were putting the brick banding in today, by the way. I know that was one of your favorite.
Yeah, that's right. So do you have a target on when this whole thing is gonna be opened up and ready to go, or?
I think, we have several proposals out. We're getting close to deals with multiple tenants. The big problem was, and I don't think, Mr. Impember, you were at the last meeting, but the National Grid strike really killed us at the front of that building. And we couldn't install the light, the signals, we couldn't do a lot of things. And we lost some potential tenants because of the delay that caused, because people would say, okay, when are you gonna be able to open this thing up?
Right.
So I'm hoping, that August has been a little slow, but I'm hoping the fall will, it'll pick up and we'll get these deals signed. So mid-next year, hopefully, if the economy doesn't falter.
Right.
So we're hoping to fill this up pretty soon.
Okay, great.
When will this particular business open? prior
We're
to that?
probably anticipating around the first of the year.
Okay,
I think that's their target season right now, so.
okay, thank you. Mike?
Madam Chair, I have complete confidence in the diaper genie, and my questions were addressed. Thank you, I'm all set.
Thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, my first concern was the amount of children, the amount of students there, 97, for any daycare. And I just wonder, staff, do you know what the amount of students are at the daycare, let's say, near the high school? It's a fairly big facility, but 100 kids, you know, my experience with daycare, that's just a huge kind of factory going on there. And I'm just trying to understand that versus square footage. Traffic-wise is brutal. If you've seen the ones near the high school, when people are dropping off, and particularly picking up, because it's frantic, because they have to be there during a period of time, people are taking lefts and rights where they shouldn't be. So I'm just looking at this little tiny corner here, with my experience with daycare parking and people jumping out of their cars, keeping them running, and saving the spot in front, and double, triple parking is just, for me, that's concerning, particularly with the number of students and faculty going on there. The other question I had was with regard to tenants. Do all the tenants in this area, are they going to require all special permits to come before us?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Any food, would come before us.
Any site changes or?
Site changes would come before us.
I think the reason why I asked that is because, with this use and the traffic that this particular one is gonna involve, and the nuances with daycare drop-off and pickup, it's madness, in my experience. Now, as we add other ones, which they're not gonna come before us, they're not gonna know about the parking spaces that they're gonna take up and what times. The only ones we're gonna get a crack at are the food ones and other kind of special permit ones. Is there an ability to kind of nibble at, every time there is an approval of one of these, that they come before us, so we can kind of picture the parking all at once? And, I know you can't prohibit one from a special permit if it doesn't require a special permit, but because of the uniqueness of the site and the traffic, particularly with this guy here, I think you got to look at this from a bigger picture with every tenant. How does that typically work with others?
With other multi-tenant centers that, what we have done in the past is we've worked with the property owner. As I mentioned before, we need strong management and coordination with the uses to make sure that the mix of uses have a good shared mix, where some are morning, some are midday, some are evening, so the peaks are balanced. So what we could do is, when new tenants come in, we could ask the property owner just to kind of work with us to provide that parking summary, as well as just to ensure that everyone's understanding of the shared parking and need for parking, peak uses, et cetera. It wouldn't be a board procedure, but could, at a staff level, we could require that.
The other, I know there's a lot of
And
talk.
to your question before, KinderCare, I don't remember the exact number, but I know when we were looking at making some comparisons with KinderCare and this property on Sears Street, KinderCare, I think in all respects, it's probably at least double what this is. So, but I don't remember exact numbers, so I don't want to quote something incorrectly, but it certainly is a bigger establishment, very much bigger than what this.
And the beauty of this one is we have a light there, so it's going to be very helpful for that versus KinderCare doesn't, where they're.
Yeah,
some rights
those
where-
left turns are problematic.
Yeah, they're an issue there. There was a lot of discussion on the play structure heights, I know with the resident there. And the height of the wall and then the fence, what was that again? The highest point of fencing?
Wasn't that a 6 foot?
I'll let Marissa answer, but
Okay.
the reason why I had them bring the landscape plan was to remind everyone there was the row of arborvitaes against the fence as well, which will grow higher than 7 feet 6 inches along that, so.
Yeah, so this is the landscape plan for the entire center, and Safari Kids would be located, if approved, in this area right here. There's an existing retaining wall along the back with a fence, solid white vinyl fence, and then a row of arborvitaes along the top of it. With this project, we are proposing an additional fence on the other side of this walkway. The additional fence would close in the play area so that it would be enclosed on all sides by fence. So essentially, there'd be a fence, a row of arborvitaes, and then another solid fence.
Well, a fence, a walkway, a row of arborvitaes,
Yes.
fence.
But I'm just more thinking in the back with the tent there, so you're talking two fences. You're adding an extra fence for the resident in the back, that's what I was thinking, right?
There's a fence along the back of the site.
With the, on top of the retaining wall.
Yes,
A
so
little
there's,
setback, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, so with the arborvitaes, that's nice, my experience, and I think I've sent you guys a couple of emails on past applicants that we've said, put some arborvitaes there. And I think one in particular is the salt shed, where I think of the half dozen arborvitaes that are there, probably 5 of them are dead, right? So I think I still have concern about the height of that structure being above the fence line, where that neighbor's going to have a view of that out the back, which is concerning to me. With regard to the play structures, when it gets a little darker, is that area going to be lit, or are there going to be no lights in that play structure area?
There will be lights.
There will be lights. And so you get daylight savings time, so they'll have lights on with that play structure. And what time do you close?
6 p.m.
6 p.m., okay. Yeah, I would maybe, with the concern of the neighbors there, I'd maybe can ask them again to comment on that with the additional lighting they're going to have into their backyard. Maybe there's something that we could do about that if, no kids over there after,
Sundown.
sundown, yeah.
It's
You don't
supposed to
need- so
not
you
go
don't
off
need
the
to have a
property
light.
bill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
in
they,
there.
they can provide shields on the lights to make sure that the light doesn't
I would imagine,
go onto any other property.
with kids this age, I can't imagine they're going to be, I don't think you need to take them outside to play after dark. So even if it
Maybe it
gets
doesn't
dark
need
at
to be
4,
Then they wouldn't be.
then they're not
going
going to go out and play after
So
dark.
maybe it doesn't get lit.
It won't be.
Yeah, so what is the reason for the lighting if they're not going to go out and play after dark?
It's just for security. We may have some sensor-based lighting in
that
case
might be
somebody
different.
jumps over the fence or something of that nature.
The problem with sensor-based lighting, because my neighbor has one, every time that something blows in the wind or a squirrel runs across the deck, it sets off the sensor lighting, and it,
Commercial ones you can adjust the sensitivity.
yeah?
Yeah, so I prefer sensor-based versus it being,
Yes,
security
but I
all
think
in
it
all.
also has to be shielded,
Yeah.
and again, if the neighbors find the lights are going off throughout the evening, throughout the night, we're gonna wanna change that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I was concerned about the diapers, and as long as, really, being a grandfather and having been a parent, still am a parent, actually, as long as the neighbors have an avenue to address that situation if it gets out of hand, and I assume that would be calls to
Us.
planning department, correct? Yes. Okay. As far as lights are concerned, if it's only security lighting, they can actually be down on the ground almost.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
They can be lowered, yeah.
Yeah, they could be much lower. They don't have to be height-wise.
That's a good point. Could we specify that?
Or not on the ground, but you know what I mean, below the fence level.
Below the
Let's say
fence.
below the fence
Yeah.
level. you know? And I don't think everybody heard you, but you did say there will be no kids playing outside after dark. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And one other question, just relative to the whole development, and I'm not sure if it's staff or Mr. Duffy, the lights that we see now that are flashing yellow, will they be operational before the project is open? Do you know?
I believe so, yes. They will be, before the project's open in January? Yes. Yeah.
Do you know, or is that,
So they're required to flash for a certain number of months
right,
by
right,
Mass
so,
DOT.
yeah, lights are coming, so don't be surprised if these turn red type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So once that period is over, the lights will be functioning even if the project is not occupied or not? Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just a curiosity
Thank you.
question.
I have just a couple of questions. So with 97 kids and 12 faculty, what is, I'm wondering what the ratio is of children to...
8 to 1.
I know that, but what is the state requirement? I thought it was 6
Depends
to
on the age.
1
It-
at
yeah,
that
Depends
age.
on
yeah,
the
it widely depends on the age of the kids.
Can
I
only have
think,
like 6 to like 1 or 2.
infants require a lesser ratio to a school-age
Right.
child.
Right. And these kids will be what ages? What, you're going to take them from infancy to...
From toddlers, actually, we're not taking infants,
Oh.
toddlers, so 18 months to school age, which would be 6
5 or
years old.
6,
And then we'd
okay.
also have an afternoon program for school age children, a few
Oh,
of
okay.
those that would be coming in.
And the school-age children would go up to what age?
Elementary school typically.
Okay, thank you. And then one thing that has nothing about this particular business, but the site in general. So there'll be a couple of spaces, I understand, designated for this particular business at certain hours. If other businesses want to have designated parking spaces, which we find they seem to want to do a lot, am I correct in understanding that the developer or the property owner would have to come to us in order to do that?
Any site changes would require your approval.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure of that. Okay, this is a public meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment or ask a question on this matter? Okay. All right.
Motion to
We're-
close, is it public hearing?
It's not public.
Public meeting.
Before you do that, I wondered, did you put any language in there dealing with the dumpsters and the trash and these conditions? And if you have, could I hear it?
Yes, I have notes, not full sentences. Hold on.
Okay.
The diapers inside, and fully put in, the diaper genie twist bag. And then when they must be kept inside until they're taken out to the dumpster. And then we will find out what the frequency of unloading is. If it is a problem, they will come back, and then I have a question mark, come back to staff or come back to the board to address how they will deal with any potential issues that come up. But, and absolutely no diapers outside of the building, not in the dumpster.
Okay.
Did I hear that they'll be taken from the interior once a day, or when the diaper genie is full, or,
If it's inside their site, I'm not sure.
If they're inside, I don't have any
Care.
issue. It's,
I understand.
it's,
How often will they be taking them out and putting them into the dumpster? I guess that's,
well,
Once a day.
they said
Once a day.
daily, but they also said there was a mechanism to fully, kind of hermetically, not hermetically, but fully close them within the twisty tie bag. And we'll find some way of saying that. And then when they put them in the dumpster, and if it's an issue, they'll come back to address that. And whether it's either they keep them inside longer or they have more frequent pickups, we'll figure out which is
so
the
if
better
you can
option.
work the phrase in contain odor, I would appreciate it.
Yes. Done.
Okay. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I have one other question. Who is the agency that licenses you as a daycare center, and do they do on-site inspections, do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the state of Massachusetts.
Which agency?
It's
Do you know?
the Social Services Child Care Division.
Okay,
And yes, they do unannounced visits and announced visits.
okay,
It's at least
thank
once
you.
a year, I think.
Just curious.
It's at least once.
All right,
Want a motion?
yes, please.
You gonna speak, Jack?
Yeah, is it the Department of Children and Families that does it? Or
Licensing
you
agency.
said social services? It used to be called DSS, but
Yeah, I think it's called
DCF now.
Oh, that's what
the EEC.
It is DCF?
No, EEC. What does it stand for? Do you know? early education, childcare.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the request of a minor engine.
Did we close public hearing?
It's not a public
It's not
hearing.
a public hearing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the request for a minor engineering change for property located at 154 Cambridge Street to construct a fenced outdoor playground in the area adjacent to the retaining wall in Building B, dedicated drop-off parking spaces, a new crosswalk and handicap ramp, as well as modifications to the catch basin in the area as reflected on the red line plan, site plan entitled 154-160 Cambridge Street in Burlington, Massachusetts, Middlesex County, minor engineering change, prepared by BSC Group, dated June 25th, 2019, consisting of one sheet, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as printed
Amended.
and amended.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, okay. 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you. Good
welcome.
luck.
Good luck in your new
Welcome.
business.
Are we on page 5?
We are indeed.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to take items 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D together for discussion purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Item 7A is a public hearing, application for approval of special permit pursuant to Section 6.1.1.1, alteration of a nonconforming use of the zoning bylaws, 1 and 3 Great Mirror Road, Town of Burlington is the applicant. Item 7B is a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 1 and 3 Great Meadow Road, Town of Burlington is the applicant. Item 7C is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 6.1.1.2, expansion of a nonconforming use of the zoning bylaws, 10 Great Meadow Road, Town of Burlington is the applicant. And lastly, item 7D is a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 10 Great Meadow Road, Town of Burlington is the applicant.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here with Jamie Fair from the firm of Weston & Sampson, who will walk us through the questions that were raised during our last meeting, forget, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to just hand it off to him so he can go over those answers.
John. Yes, Jamie Fair, Weston Sampson, filling in for Jeff Alberti while he's on vacation. I'll just briefly go through the DPW site, starting with 1-3 Great Meadow Road. You see the proposed facility here, approximately 37,850 square feet. It's basically the same general plan that we discussed before with a few modifications based on the comments that we've received, and I'll just touch on those briefly. The first one was, I think this was actually from the Concom, but they asked that we relocate the generator, and so we pulled it from this area that was closer to the river and brought it in closer to the building to help minimize the impervious area. There was a comment regarding black vinyl fence for the perimeter of the site. We will be providing that along the edge of the site. There is where the concrete bins are located, we are going to go with a textured block there. So here, where the bins are, this will be a textured block to give it a more aesthetic look, and then the fence will tie in at the edges of that and then extend at exposed areas of the perimeter.
Can you explain to me what that is?
Sure. So the concrete block bins are like large, like 2 by 4 by 2 blocks where they'll store sand, topsoil, and other materials. And so it's a larger concrete block, but you can buy that block with like an architectural feature to the exterior face of it, so it gives it a more aesthetic look. And so instead of like maybe sort of a beat up, sort of flat faced block, these will be newly purchased block with a textured architectural surface to give it a better look, essentially.
Is it made out of cement?
Yes, concrete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's an enclosure. Is it fully enclosed, or is it
No.
3 walls?
It's basically a series of walls, open bins. So you see these right
Okay.
here?
Open air to,
Open to
open
the
on
air,
the top?
open
Okay.
above, and basically 3 walls, sides and back, and then open the front so a loader can remove, say, sand and gravel and store separate types of soil-type materials.
Do you happen to have a picture of what that would look like? If not, I know we're not voting on this tonight, so we can
Yeah.
find out later. I think we'd like to see what that would look like.
Yeah, sure, I don't believe we have one with this presentation tonight.
This time.
but we can bring one.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
sure. Okay,
Originally, when we thought it was just plain block, we were going to ask for a fence, so the reason I want to see it is we want to see if that's still required, or maybe it won't be required if this is more attractive.
So I may add to that after the walk that we had a couple of weeks ago, and we thought that, I mean, the cost of a fence is actually not expensive at all, but we thought that putting a fence in front of the wall, we're just gonna have a place for trash and other things to go in between a wall and a fence, which will be very hard to maintain. So in lieu of doing that, we thought about putting some kind of a texture wall in, and a thought, an idea, what that may look like is, in this particular project you just talked about a minute ago, here on 3A, they have a retaining wall that has that type of texture look into it. So it's not like a plain piece of concrete, but it has some texture to it. So that's an idea of what it may look like.
And then there'll be some landscaping in front of it between that and the road?
that's coming up, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we
thank
have a
you.
landscaping plan,
Okay.
yeah, sure. So we discussed the fence, then there was a request about what does this look like, from an overall aerial view of the site. So here's the site here, and then you see how it's orientated with the adjacent areas. You have the meadow area here, the river that wraps the perimeter site. This is Coles located here, Burlington Mall Road out front, and the commercial properties. And we put together a landscaping plan, was done by our landscape architect. They used these several sources to identify native plantings. This is the plan here, and I'll show you in a little more detail, but the green areas are gonna be the grass landscaped areas, and there's a table with the various types of plants. This was submitted earlier, and these are photos of example plantings that'll be going around the site. So in front of this, the concrete block wall that we were just talking about, we'll have these types of plants: mountain laurel, Canadian yew. These are lower type plants that are gonna be up against the face of the wall. This is a key area from a traffic sightline standpoint, so we can't go too far out. So that's the strategy that we're approaching to maintain a balance between the two needs there. And so that's the landscaping plan. And there was also a concern about the tree. There is an existing tree in the existing parking lot area that we're going to redevelop as part of this project and put in new paving. This is the tree here. Our landscape architect reviewed it, and unfortunately, the tree's been trimmed back over the years to keep clearance from these wires, so it is in relatively tough shape from that standpoint. It's also an area that we really can't avoid from a functional standpoint on the site, given the constraints of needing to stay within the developed area and the wetlands. But what we can do is provide new trees, new plantings along the perimeter of site, I think, to help offset that impact. And then we got comments
Can you
from the...
go back one? I didn't
Yeah,
get a
sure.
chance to fully absorb what you had there. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
red maple, green ash, arrowwood, viburnum, and white spruce.
Can you go back one again to see what you're getting rid of? There you go, right there. There's an island there between the two parking lots, and what specifically is on there and what you're taking out. It looks like some very mature trees there, right?
Yeah, this is the tree right here.
Yeah, I'm seeing three. I haven't seen some in the back, yeah.
Yeah, so that mature tree is located right in the center of this circle, and this is a photo of the tree here. And so, yeah, you can see, like, right now, it's on the edge of the existing parking lot, between these cars here, and it's with the space parking needs of this facility, we need to remove that tree. And our landscape architect looked at it, and yes, it certainly is a mature tree. It has been, damaged over the years, compromised due to the pruning that's necessary to keep clearance from the wires. And so what we felt seemed appropriate was to put in new trees around the perimeter site that would work with the parking requirements for the facility and stay within the developed area.
be possible to have some of those trees, or perhaps some smaller scale things in the part of the green that's closer to the road?
Yeah, I
So
think
it sort of softens the look of the cars.
we could.
Right
add-
there.
Right in this area, yeah.
Yes, and on the other side as well.
And over here,
Yes,
certainly.
that would be great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So we received several comments from the engineering department. I won't read through all of these, just to acknowledge that we have them and they're all being incorporated into the plans. Same thing, more sewer comments. Yes, we'll get the permits, we'll do the proper sewer calculations. We'll work with MWRA. From a stormwater standpoint, we are meeting the DEP standards and reducing the development, post-development flows from the site will be lower than pre-development. We're meeting all the treatment standards for stormwater at the site. And again, on drainage, we're incorporating all these comments into the plans. The one thing that's a little different is we're not infiltrating on site as you normally would just do with the site history. It's not feasible at this site, but we're meeting all the treatment standards, so we will be in line with DEP policies. Again, more comments of the same type of nature, and they'll all be incorporated into the site. We are also going to upgrade the sidewalk that's existing at the site in the area shown by the yellow line here, extending from the entrance to the shopping plaza up to the stream crossing. Not over the bridge, because that would require expansion of the bridge, but we'll stop it right there.
Where is Middlesex?
That's everything on 1-3.
Where's Middlesex, in relation to that picture, where's Middlesex there?
I'm sorry?
It's pretty far away from you.
Where's Middlesex Turnpike in relation to this
Oh,
picture?
it's down here.
You have that old picture?
Yeah, let me go back to the early on.
Isn't it to the left? Because you go to the left to go up to the turnpike. Yes. And Staples is right there, the parking lots.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
So here's Burlington Mall Road here, Middlesex Turnpike here. This is our site right here.
Okay.
Great Meadow Road loops, as you know, up, yeah. Okay.
That's a well-used cut through.
Yes?
As you people down, you know, you see the cars going by all day long both ways.
Okay.
Okay. So that's 1-3. And we'll skip forward to 10. Here's 10. So here's the basic site layout, very similar to what we talked about before, 28,500 square feet. And this is how it looks with the aerial site. So Middlesex Turnpike's right here, Great Meadow Road, looping around here, come off the corner. And we did a landscaping plan for this site as well, similar to 1-3. So we have these types of plantings around the perimeter site in the green areas. And we got basically the same types of comments on this site as the other sites, so we're incorporating all of that. Any questions on 10? That's all, yeah.
Well, I'm sure there will be.
Yep, okay.
I'm going to let everyone have a chance.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Is that the end of your
That's it
presentation?
for 10, yeah, we're just trying
Okay.
to, but we'll drill as far deep as you'd like to go. so.
Okay, thank you. Ernie, do you want to start us off?
Madam Chair, can I just make,
I'm sorry.
No, no,
Yes, of
I
course,
don't-
Kristen.
yeah, I don't need to give a full presentation. I just wanted to kind of set the stage as to where we are tonight. Concom, they went to Concom last week. From what I hear, it went well. They addressed a lot of their comments. The Concom did not close yet. We do not have formal comments yet from Conservation. Also, they're going to Board of Health 27th?
Correct.
Something like that. On the 27th, we don't have Board of Health comments yet. So without those two boards submitting comments, we don't have a decision drafted for this evening. At the last meeting, there were a handful of questions, but at this meeting, I just wanted to let you and the public know that we're not looking to make a decision tonight. So if there are, but if there are any additional questions we want answered in between now and the next meeting, make sure that we raise them to the applicant.
Thank you.
Thanks.
When you get your approval, if you get your approval, sorry, when you get your approval, when do you plan to start construction? So when do you plan on putting it out to bid? Is what I'm
So
trying to
the
get at.
process of going out to bid as far as completing the plants is progressing as we're going through this permitting. The idea is to get in the ground before the end of the year, so we
Oh,
can
okay.
do foundation work, and then contractors can work through the winter. You know, trying
So
to get
you'd-
that work done after is gonna be kind of difficult.
So John, you'd be taking down the existing structure before the winter?
The 10 Meadow, yes,
But not one
but
and-
not,
one and
not
two.
this one.
Okay, okay. A lot of my questions were answered the first meeting, actually, and the results I've seen, so
Okay,
I'm good right now. Thank you.
thank you. Bill?
Yeah, no further questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment was that at the last meeting, my concern was the sidewalk between 1-3 and 10. And I actually went to the site and looked at it. And I don't know, I mean, as much as I'd like a sidewalk there, I don't see that you have the room for it. In true Burlington spirit, when I was at 10, I saw even a coyote up at the site. So, but between, after that bridge, all the way up to 10, there's not a lot of room there. So I just wanted to add to my comments at that last meeting. That's all,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Joe?
Well, I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you took the detail to show us pictures of the trees that were being taken down and why they had to be taken down, and that you replaced them sufficiently with, additional trees going in there. I appreciate that. I mean, it looks good to me from this point, so.
Paul?
I'll probably say more than I should, but that to me is a very sensitive site, because way back when, we had to send out a notice with our water bills that the salt content was going up in the water, and if you were on a low salt diet, this is back in the 70s, if you were on a low salt diet, you should, ask your doctor if you should be drinking our water. And as a matter of fact, one of the people running for selectman at that time, his note was, do you like your water plain or salty? Because salt was there, and that's, essentially as close as you can get to our well field. And just a background, is the well field going to continue to be used, and we'll be using water from that source once we go on MWRA, or will that treatment plant be shut down and it'll be all over?
Well, two parts, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. The first part is we do not store any salt at the facility that we currently have. And my understanding was, and I was not here in the 70s, but there used to be a silo there at that
Yes, well, a
site
silo was put in.
that-
That was one of the selectmen. His thing was gonna get a silo, but it really didn't work that well. It
Right,
was
but-
up there for like 2 years. But the question was the salt in our well field coming from 95, 128, and the salt used there and so forth? Or was it coming from that site? But my question was, when you were speaking about storing things on that site, could we get a list of anything that would be stored on the ground there?
As far as the materials on the bins, or?
Yes. Yeah, if it's sand or whatever, it
gravel,
would be
stone,
nice to
yeah,
know.
Yeah, that's, absolutely, we can give you the list. But it's typical construction materials that we have. It's not chemicals or,
Right,
de-icers or anything like that. Those are not kept there.
okay.
And to your question of the MWRA, if I may, although it's a little bit
course.
outside of
Please,
the
yes.
scope. The goal, as we stated at town meeting, is to eventually abandon the production of water from the Weinberg treatment plant. However, I mean, aquifers are an asset to the community, so the community will make a decision on whether or not to maintain that as an asset. But as far as the treatment plant itself, our goal is to eventually move to replace that production with MWRA water.
It would be almost nice if that could be decommissioned, if you will, and kept, so that in case of an emergency and it was needed, because that's a tremendous resource.
Right. In the next few years, until we fully may go into the MWRA, our goal, and that's how we stated it through the permitting agencies, is that our goal is to maintain the facility able to produce water by routinely going back and producing water at least once a month to make sure that everything runs.
Sure.
So
Right.
something like what happened other states, I won't say the name, will not happen here as far as people not knowing how to run the plant. Our goal is to maintain that.
Thank you. As to the sidewalk, you know, I just have a feeling where the two facilities are so close together that people are gonna be walking back and forth. You can see the sidewalk now goes up to the driveway that goes into the retail area. But you can see along the sidewalk where people walk, because there's a nice place there where, you can see through the grass, the trail up until the end of that property. And, if a way can be found to put a sidewalk in there, it may require some digging out of the banking or whatever, but I would put extra effort into that along with Michael. I think that would be really important, because I walk down there sometime, but I don't walk that far because I go up through the driveways and up to the Middlesex Turnpike. But yes, long-needed facility, like the recreation facility, so we're glad to see it going forward.
I spent a lot of time down there as a little kid.
Up there, yeah.
Trespassing?
Oh, my father was a highway superintendent.
Yes.
I was down there all the time, hanging out
Jack?
with the guys.
Yeah, I can still, along with his comment about the salt, I can still picture at a selectmen's meeting, Selectman Jack Kilmartin jokingly saying, when you're boiling your pasta, you didn't need to add any extra salt to the water. As far as the comments, this is what, the fourth meeting we've had on this between subcommittees and the last public hearing? And
Second hearing,
Second here, and
we had one.
at least two subcommittee
Sure.
meetings. And each time you've been extremely responsive to all the comments, and I think that it's been very well done, and I'm pleased, and you covering for Jeff Alberti, who has done an excellent job in presenting this and getting the information out, so I have no further questions or comments at this point.
thank you.
I have just a couple of quick comments. I did want to recognize what Member Raymond had said about bringing the sidewalk further up, because that's something I had asked for at the last meeting, and when we went out on the sidewalk, I realized what the problem was with doing that. First of all, it is a very long, expansive road to get up to Middlesex Turnpike, but also when you get there, there's nowhere to go. There's no way to cross safely. So we would be bringing people, even if we did incur that expense, we would be bringing people somewhere where they had nowhere to go, and we'd be dumping them off into an unsafe location. So that was a big part of the reason why that's not going to happen at this time. I also want to commend you all, because I think this has been very well done. We try really hard to treat everyone that comes before us the same, and sometimes people expect us to treat the town differently, and I appreciate the fact that you've been great about working with us and providing the same things that we would ask any commercial developer to provide, like landscaping and fencing and more attractive materials. I think this is going to be a very nice site. It's going to look much better than it does now. So it's been great to work with you on it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
So we are going to continue tonight simply because we don't have the other board's input, but I expect the next time you come back, it should be pretty quick.
Tremendous.
On a
Thank you very much.
Yes, I do want a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to continue these matters to the planning board meeting of September 5th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I make a motion to take item 7E, 7F together for discussion purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Okay, item 7E is a continued public hearing, application for
Madam Chair,
approval of
there's
a...
a question in the audience, I'm not sure what that is
Oh.
about.
Is that regarding this? Okay. I'm sorry. I forgot to do that, Monty. My apologies. Please come forward.
Do we need to reopen the public hearing?
They need to reopen it.
Okay,
I have this question.
just when, we have to reopen the public hearing, sorry.
Oh, sorry, right.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. My apologies to everyone. Please go ahead.
I'm just asking this question because I have been enlightened by you folks having a couple of meetings about adapting to global climate change. And I didn't hear anything, and so I wasn't sure. Is this site going to be viable in 30 years when 100-year rainfalls happen every 5 or 10 years? Is this site going to be flooded at those times? Are you raising the ground up, or, I mean, to me, it's right on the edge of the wetlands, and
So we, unfortunately, we unplugged the plans, I can show you here, but basically the site.
Use the microphone so the folks at home can hear.
How's that? The site, the floodplain for the site is down low where the river is, as you've indicated, and our site is quite a bit higher than that. It's elevated up above that river elevation, so we're well outside of the 100-year flood zone.
How high?
Yeah, probably on the order of 6 feet or more, yeah.
okay. All right, I just want to check.
Thank you.
We're moving into that era.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to ask a question or speak on this matter? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing again.
Motion to,
No, close the public hearing.
motion to
sorry.
continue this matter to.
Sorry.
Really didn't, yeah, I
We
guess
didn't need to
really
open. Okay, so we're continuing.
Right, matter
It's
to,
been seconded. So all those in favor of continuing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
I'll remake my motion to continue items 7E and F together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Thank you.
thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Okay. Item 7E is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.6, outdoor storage of supplies and equipment incidental to permitted uses, subject to the requirements for location, lighting, screening, fencing, cover, and safety precautions of the zoning bylaw. 376 Cambridge Street, The Granite Place Incorporated is the applicant. And item 7F is a continued public hearing, continued discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 376 Cambridge Street, The Granite Place Incorporated is the applicant. Welcome. Please have a seat and state your name for the record. We have a very busy meeting and a lot to cover, so I wanted to try and just keep our focus on this particular discussion to the outdoor storage. I understand that there is another issue that is yet to be addressed regarding fabrication on site, but we are still waiting for a decision on that from the building inspector, so I'd prefer we don't get into that tonight, and we'll just discuss the outdoor storage. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Carol Gomes?
Jonathan Acosta?
And Frank DePietro from the BSC Group, civil engineer. Briefly, just to try to keep things moving, to give you a quick update, when we last met, we did post the neighborhood for a meeting at the Granite Place. That occurred, we had 2 folks show up from 4 and 6 Douglas Road. One of those folks submitted a letter that seemed to be very favorable. The other gentleman talked about how he's a little bit old, he doesn't want to write anything, but he authorized us to say he was in favor of the project. So there's that. We did, in fact, meet with the subcommittee and talk about this project a couple of weeks back. And then we've had discussions ongoing with the planning staff, and we've been going back and forth with some modifications based upon those discussions. So I'm going to quickly go to the plan and show the latest plan you got. You should have received a very quickly drawn this morning, that red line plan. To be very fair, my version of that plan looks like this. My associate Emily, hiding back there, did the good work. So, just to reorientate folks, this is Cambridge Street, there's the 62. This is our site right here. Between Norden and Douglas is over in that location. We have a blank screen, but that was to give you some surprise. So, a couple
thing, we've gone back and forth about how do we want to handle snow storage. That was an issue the last time. One point, we were looking to push the fence back here to the top of that slope where we weren't impacting trees. We've since gone back and done some more modifications. One modification is that the applicants are willing to put up an 8-foot-high fence. We originally had suggested a 6-foot-high. We're willing to put up an 8-foot-high fence. My understanding is that requires a building permit from the building department. So that's what we're proposing right now. The fences we talked about would run, basically, it would be a white vinyl fence here. There would be a gate, which would be a chain link fence over in this location. A concern that was brought up by the staff was, how is this going to really work out? Where are things going to be positioned on the property to make sure they meet the zoning setbacks for the outdoor storage and they provide access? So what we've done, there's an existing 20-foot driveway that comes in from Cambridge Street, and we're going to maintain that 20-foot driveway through the site. We're going to maintain a 20-foot driveway along the back of the site. And this is intentional in this here because this blue line, I don't know if you can see it, is where the zoning setback is from residential for storage. Over here, the same thing, right along the parking spaces here, is the zoning setback for residential. All of our storage is going to be outside of that. These parking spaces aren't needed. And rather than push the fence back and work over in this area here, what we thought is we would keep those spaces, the pavement there, but we'd use them for snow storage. The snowplow could come in and plow the snow in this area here. The fence would be right behind them, and that would be out of the way of stuff. These crosshatch areas here are where we would be storing the product. And those areas are determined by the setback from the residential on these areas here, the 20-foot drive aisle, the existing overhead doors in the building.
Bless you.
Sorry. And then we'd place that area in there. Also, we have a dumpster area, and we've discussed in the past about there is a truck, so the remnants of broken pieces of stone are put in the truck that's driven off when it's full and basically recycle that at a mill type thing. So we're putting in the enclosed dumpster in this area here. It gives us access here to get into it. And so that would be the other area. We're showing on this plan, well, I won't go into the interior stuff because that's not something we're going to talk about at this point. That's basically the presentation, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Staff?
Sure. So one of the key issues, or the questions that we had at the last meeting and throughout this process is, okay, if we're going to have outdoor storage, I would rather, or we would rather have you show us where you were, the limit of where you were storing, rather than mark out all these drive aisles and fire lanes and all that stuff. Because it's easier to see, you know, and we would suggest that any of these kind of areas be marked on the ground, physically on the ground, painted on the ground, so you know if it's in there or if it's out of there, and if it's not within the space, it needs to be taken off-site. We did just get this plan today. We haven't had a chance to send it out to any of the departments for comment, or the fire police department, so I don't have comments from them on this plan. As well as, so the chair, as you prefaced before this, we also don't yet, we should soon, but we don't yet have the determination of the use from the zoning enforcement officer, as also the building inspector. We did send a letter, which is in your books, just so you know it exists, in your books in the front, to the building department. We did send it also to the applicant, so they understood where we kind of were with the use, with an understanding of, and I know we're not going to talk about that piece, but just, you know, where we are with the fabrication part and the effects on the neighbors. And, you know, if it's, whatever the term determination is, if it stays or if it's only allowed in that small portion, or to make sure that all the things that have come up in the past, that everything needs to be 100% indoors, that no washing of anything outside. So we don't have that answer yet. We'll, I guess, cross that bridge when we come to it. So today, what we really need to be discussing is this outdoor storage. Where is it? What is it? What are the impacts of outdoor storage whether it's a showroom or fabrication. And if the conditions that we can put in place are acceptable to control all the impacts that we may have from the outdoor storage and moving of the granite. So that's kind of the question that we need to have the board kind of weigh in tonight and trying to figure out if, what we need to be thinking about. And I'm not sure if there's other neighbors here and to hear what they have to say. They have been moving in the right direction with the fence and with some getting out of the buffer zone. They did have the fence pushed out a little bit to have the snow storage beyond the pavement, but when looking out there, what we really don't want, we want to make sure is we keep a vegetated buffer as wide as we can. There are some trees there. There are a few older trees, but a lot of younger trees. And then within the site, again, regardless of the use, to make sure that, any of the curbing along the site, they're placing some in the front of the site with some vertical granite. In the back of the site, there's bituminous, which, bituminous might be okay, but what we certainly need to see is, with the fence right behind it, if there's any cracks or broken curb, those need to be repaired. And anyway, just understand the site a little bit more and how does the site change with the addition of the outdoor storage.
Before I turn it over to the board, can you just quickly explain to us what the rules are regarding outdoor storage in this zone?
Sure.
According to the bylaw,
Yep.
what the bylaw says about that.
So this is under, give me just a second. 4326, which is outdoor storage of supplies and equipment incidental to permitted uses, subject to requirements for location, lighting, fencing, screening, cover, and safety precautions. And that is a special permit in the BG district. So those are all of the things that we've been
Right.
talking through at these meetings. But that is the accessory use by special permit to a permitted uses within the building.
So it has to be an accessory use and it's supposed to be incidental. Is that correct?
Outdoor storage of supplies and equipment incidental to permitted uses, subject to requirements for location, lighting, screening, fencing, cover, safety
Okay,
precautions.
thank you. Jack, do you want to start us off?
I prefer to hear from the neighbors if the neighbors are here first.
I don't know if they are, I'm not sure, but, okay, there's somebody, I guess. Okay,
I don't think they want to speak, but I know the landlord.
This one, a lady is coming forward.
welcome. Can you just state your name and address for the record? Thank you.
My name is Heather Deli, and our address is 4 Van Norden. Since this whole process has begun, the Granite Place has been there before we moved in, and there's been some contention with other neighbors. We've discussed directly any concerns that we've had with the Granite Place and seen all of those things addressed immediately. They've been great neighbors. My daughter locked herself out of the house one day and went over there and called me from the phone. So it's just, I think that these next steps are really important for them to be able to store outside.
So can you're in favor
Yeah,
of allowing this? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Okay, Jack, you're up.
Oh, this one.
Oh, wait, there is someone. Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Mo. I live across the street at the Cambridge Street, the Granite Place. Last meeting I was here and I have a concern about the noises and then dust. The area like a factory. Outdoor storage is considering like a factory type of things. 18-wheelers, 20-wheelers trucks come in, loading, unloading, noises, and then cutting noises also. So that's my concern. It's it's not good for the neighborhood. I mean, you can decide whatever you want, but this is my concern about this. Like a peace is important. My kids are going to school, they can focus on the study or something like that. And I don't know any other neighbor already mentioned to you about anything about this, but this is my concern for the consideration.
The noise that concerns you, is it mostly the noise from the cutting of the
Cutting
granite?
noise.
Or is it also noise of the deliveries? And
Trucks, yeah, delivery trucks, delivery, loading, unloading.
Mhm.
The workers come in, they like make some noises, and this is quite a bit normal, because if there's a storage, the loading, unloading, the stones and everything. The showroom is like, okay, because showroom is like a showroom. People come in quietly, they can check and they can order.
Yes.
But constantly loading, unloading things and then cutting noises, I
Right.
don't think this is healthy for the neighborhood.
The actual activity of cutting and what's called fabrication of the granite itself, that's something we are going to be discussing at another meeting. We're waiting for a decision from the building inspector. We share your concern. We just don't have any information from him yet in order to make any decisions. But we will be getting to that. Member Espaillo has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming in and your comments. Is there a particular time that has been problematic for deliveries over at the site? Have you noticed any particular times that have been, you feel inappropriate to be getting some of these deliveries? Or have you seen street blockages or any dangers that the deliveries present when they come in?
As of yet, I haven't seen any street blocks or anything, but sometimes, trucks come in, after around nighttime, and, but there's a bus stop in front of the granite place. There's a bus stop for the kids and also the local bus stop. So
How late have you seen them deliver? Nighttime?
nighttime, I heard the noises of the trucks, delivery trucks.
Past 7 PM?
I don't remember the
Don't remember,
timings,
just evening, okay.
Yeah, just evening, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Any other
Could
questions?
I ask his address again, please?
Of course.
Your address?
Yeah, your address. What number, Cambridge
Oh.
Street?
That's across the street, 391.
You're across Cambridge Street from
Yes,
this.
across the Cambridge Street.
What
And
number?
and you can hear the cutting?
391.
Yes, yeah.
I
across
think
the street.
391.
391. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak from the audience? Okay. Third time, Jack.
Okay. The gentleman who just spoke mentioned 18-wheelers. I'm wondering if that gets in there, how's it getting out? Or do you get trucks of that size bringing material in?
Big tractor trailers.
I don't know, I've only been there a couple times, I've seen a truck in there during the daytime, and they apparently back in, they pull in the front, turn around, they
In the parking lot.
come in here, and I saw them back in that direction, so they're pointed out, but they were probably a flatbed, they may have had 18 wheels and not
So
the huge,
a tractor trailer that,
right.
Yeah, they
okay, so
drive in
they
and
go in
back.
and they back in?
In the property, yes. They go
Okay,
in
so
and back in the
They
property.
pull up on Cambridge Street and then back in?
No, what I think happens is you can, so this is the site right here, just to clean it, I think you can pull in like this and back in that way.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not being done on the street?
Obviously, they're slowing down to get into the site, but.
Yeah, okay, no, it's not done on the street, okay, fine. That, in the, you move stuff around with forklifts and things like that?
Yes.
They're electric fork, or gas, propane,
Gas.
or electric? I guess we'd be potentially looking at hours of operation and when that type of external noise would be generated, because if you drop a pallet of that stuff, it could be a little bit of noise. So we would be looking at conditions as to time of outside operations and things like that, if we get that far. I think for now, pending the decision on the expanded use, I'll wait until then.
Thank you, Jack. Paul?
Yes. One of my concerns is, I'm getting deaf. But, I was not familiar with how much activity there is, because if I come in to buy something, you show me the various different kinds of materials you have, then you take the person out and show them the actual piece of material that they're buying
Yes.
that's gonna go in their house, you're cutting and so forth. And to do that, not infrequently, you have to move other pieces of granite, because you've got them all lined up there, so you have to, and one thing that I can hear is when those little forklifts are backing up, if they have beepers, that would drive me nuts. No, really, because, one morning, somebody got going over at the mall before 7 o'clock, and I ended up with the police department. Because I'm trying it Saturday morning, and beep, 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 beep. So that would be a major concern of mine because of the amount of movement back and forth and so forth. The other thing is, the doors are going to be closed and so forth, so I guess the gentleman said he can still hear the noise of the cutting, because the
Well,
materials,
We actually aren't going to make a decision about that tonight, just so you know, because the building inspector is determining whether or not that use is even allowed here.
okay,
So it might not be, it might be, so we're going to just, you can comment if you want, but just so you know, we're not going to make any decisions tonight as to whether or not they're allowed to continue cutting at that location.
when the chair addresses me, I understand.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to make sure, because that's going to be a whole nother meeting,
Okay.
okay? So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was just saying that's one of my concerns. What are we specifically addressing tonight?
Just outdoor storage.
It is what it is. That's part of their business, is to have all that granite out there and other things that they use and cut and so forth. So if they're gonna operate, they have to have the outdoor storage.
Right, but we
And I
still-
would just wait on the building inspector.
For the fabrication. Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I'm obviously going to wait on the fabrication decision as well, but a couple of questions I have. One is you currently have a gas forklift, is that what you're saying?
Gas forklift, yes.
Is it a possibility to get an electric forklift? Just the running of the forklift itself is probably generating a lot of noise.
Propane?
It's propane.
Not gasoline.
It's propane.
So do they start up like an engine, like a regular motor, like a gas motor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, versus an electric motor, electric engine, motor, which would be a much quieter situation. But the other question I have is, understanding a little bit about these types of operations, in the past, I've picked granite out, and the place we had gone to what they did was they sent us to, they had the showroom, and they had their samples, and then we picked out the samples, and they said, yeah, if you want to, look for the slabs, we work with this, warehouse, we work with this way. There was one in Norwood, there was one up in Methuen, there was one, they said you can go to all of those locations, and there's thousands of slabs, that you can choose from, and you pick one, they tag it for you, and then we get it delivered, and we, do our thing,
Yes.
fabricate it and do everything like that. Now, I guess the question I have is, how long have you guys been in business, and are you anticipating growing? Because it seems to me like this almost seems like an interim problem.
We've been in business 6 years. And yes, we want to grow.
It seems more like an interim problem, right? Because if there's gonna be a point in time where that's not gonna work on the site, right? You're gonna want your customers to be able to pick from thousands of,
Then we get another location.
what's that?
Then we get another location too.
Right, so you're looking at this probably as an interim location, and it's kind of a growing pain kind of thing, where you're kind of it seems like you're maybe too small to have a bigger location right now, and, getting too big for that location kind of thing. So that was one of the questions I had, because I don't, even if this were to be approved, I mean, it almost seems like a Band-Aid, you know. It doesn't seem like something that's gonna really suit you guys in the long run. In other words, would it make more sense for you to have, I mean, it's a great location for a showroom. Wouldn't it make more sense to have the other piece of the operation somewhere else if, you know, or have you in the past done things like sent people to other locations to pick slabs out? So you're kind of wanting to have your own slabs delivered, which is, I don't know how common that is in the industry, or if they, you know, if the smaller places tend to use bigger warehouses full of slabs, you know?
Yeah, it's better to have your own slabs in this business.
Yeah, but you're very limited in what you can have there, you know, as far as selection, right? I mean, it's not, like I said, it almost seems like a sort of an interim problem that you're gonna grow out of it at some point in time.
And then,
That's what we do. We send the customer to the warehouse, and then that's why we get the deliver. When the people select the colors on the other store.
Okay, so the ones that you have here are the ones that have been delivered that they've picked at other warehouses, is that?
Some people do that.
yeah,
So
Not all of them.
not
so
all the
a lot of
customers.
these slabs are just waiting to be fabricated?
Yeah,
Yes.
What percentage would you say are ones that are there to be picked through versus ones that have been delivered for fabrication?
In 20-30%. We have
20 or
No, no, no,
30%?
No, his question's different. 1 second, please.
Sure.
Perguntou quanto que a gente faz lá, pelos que, não, a gente corta mais in-house. Yeah, it's 70% on what we cut in-house. 30% is come outside.
come from outside.
So 30% of the ones on your site have been brought from other warehouses, delivered for fabrication?
No,
And then
The other way around?
the other way around.
70% have been delivered to be fabricated, and 30%.
No, I'm sorry. You got it, I'm sorry.
I had it the first time, right?
Yes, you had it, I'm sorry.
It would've made more
Yes,
sense,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So 70% of them are just looking to be picked through by customers, and 30% are there strictly for fabrication.
Yes.
All right. And have we heard from, so from the onset of this application and from the, you know, any of the complaints that have gone through, have we heard from all of the residents? Because it seems like there's only a very few residents at this point in time, so there's only a few.
We do have like an email list that we do. Jen notifies people who have given us their email. We notify them that this item is on the agenda.
Right. There's been
for
a
the,
couple on Van Norden and then the family across the street on
Right.
Cambridge Street.
For the open house we had, that sort of meet and greet at the Granite Place, the applicants went and put, or delivered into the mailboxes or handed folks, the 20 folks immediately around them, the invitations. And we certainly were there and open for about an hour and a half.
20, is that what you said, Frank?
Yes.
Madam Chair, can I ask a follow-up question to Member
course.
Mpemba's question? So 30% to be fabricated, 70% is there for people to pick out the slab.
And ultimately will be fabricated too, but.
True,
But for the most
but
part, yeah.
my question is in terms of the amount of times you move the slab, meaning that if you were not fabricating, would the slab just get delivered, be there, and then, stay in the same place until it goes, either gets fabricated or?
Yes.
But with fabrication, you're getting it delivered, then you pick it up to move it in, pick it up again to move it out, and then pick it up a fourth time to go off. So I'm just, in terms of the movement of the heavy equipment around the site and the difference between it, being a showroom picking out the piece versus doing the fabrication. And it seems like there's, probably half as many times it would, if you say average, 4 times if you're dropping it off, pulling it in, putting it out, having it leave the site, versus just the 2 times. So just in terms of intensity of equipment moving things around the site, would it be less if there was no fabrication? That's what I'm just trying to tease out, I guess.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Are you done?
Yes.
Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going to keep my comments to the outdoor storage for your request. I do want to say, start with the good stuff. This plan is a lot better than, well, the chaos that I've seen. I drive by the place twice a day on the to and from work, and I really like what you've done with the plan for the outdoor storage. I like the 20-foot drive aisle, I like the setback. My question actually is for staff. How are we going to go out, how is this plan going to be enforced? That they follow what we have here? Respectfully, we have an applicant that is willfully ignored a cease and desist from the town. And how are we going to make sure that this is followed? I mean, this looks really good, and on paper, everything looks good. But in real life, we've learned, specifically in this case, that it doesn't always work out the way we'd hoped. So who's going to enforce this?
Well, the enforcement arm of the planning board is the building department. We can observe and write letters, but we are not the official enforcement agent for the planning, for the town. What we have tried to set up within this plan is an easy way to know if you are or aren't compliant, meaning, you know, if we said you can't have more than 150 slabs, who's gonna go count the amount of slabs? But if you go on site and there's slabs outside of this designated area, they're outside. So anyway, that's kind of the path we're leading down, and obviously hoping that the applicant will comply with all conditions, but really kind of know quickly when things are the right way or the wrong way, and by marking them and then the field, that makes it a lot easier to be able to know quickly when things are or aren't being done in the right way. So, but the building department is the official enforcement arm.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. No further comments or questions.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions that I had on this one. With regard to the Granite Place trucks, is the thought that those will be inside of the gated area at some point, and where would you put them with regard to the parking spaces?
Yeah, outside the gate area.
Okay. And how many trucks do you have?
3 vans.
3 vans, thank you.
Yeah.
So this space is this is the natural cleaners. These are the spaces right along here. They'd be outside of the fence and the gate, and that's where they would store their vans.
Yeah, I know this, and I don't know if there's any, maybe it's to the staff about kind of trucks and put them outside, or do they get put around back? Is there a bylaw on that because it's considered advertising? I've heard some stuff in
Because
the past on
they
that.
look like
They look like
moving
signs.
ads. Yeah, yeah.
We generally do put conditions into decisions that, you know, there's a lot of companies that have box trucks for delivery of certain things, and they'd love to park them right in the perfect corner
Yeah.
of the site for advertising. Yeah, I mean, we would, for their general, if they had a truck like that, we would put that condition in.
I think they do.
They've got 3,
Yeah, the vans.
3 vans.
The vans, and
Yes.
then we would
'Cause that-
make sure
that
that
shows
they're
it's
not
more of a-
used as
A
advertising.
factory versus it being
And there's
just
also
a
some
display.
slabs in the front of the site that we would
have to be
require
moved.
them be moved back.
Would it be easier
As
to
advertising.
to address Bill's concern, which I share, to designate where those vans should be parked rather than just say, don't use them as signs?
Sure.
Excuse
A
me.
little more definitive.
They are parked on, sorry, they are parked on parking lot on the side. We don't use them as signs.
He load in the morning and then go to work and come back afternoon.
Yeah.
So the truck is
So
just
they are
stay there
overnight.
all day.
They're overnight and weekends.
Weekends.
Right.
Yep.
Just overnight.
So we can decide where they should go. Thank you, Bill.
And thank you, staff, for mentioning the display slabs out front. That's probably also a safety issue with the kids riding, you know,
Yeah.
with the bikes around there. They want to put all slabs in the back if it's approved. The shipping container with the snowplow on top, what is that, what's in the shipping container?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please?
The big the shipping container, out back, the orange shipping container, the plow on top, what's in that shipping container?
It's just storage, it sinks. It's
Sinks?
storage, yeah.
Is that gonna stay?
Yes.
Okay, where's that on the plan?
That, I would put that in one of those storage areas.
One of the crosshatched areas?
So, under
Just
we're looking at the residential setback that's required, which is, again, it may not be, there's a blue line here. So this area is off limits for any kind of a storage facility. So somewhere back here where, instead of some slabs, they have to store whatever the other equipment they may have would be in this area that's crosshatched.
If you're going to keep the container, you should show the
Right.
container.
Yes.
And what's the bylaw with regard to shipping containers? Is it permitted? Is
They
it?
need to be shown on the plan, and if you approve them, they can be there. But
Okay.
if they, right now, they can't be there if they're not
Okay.
shown.
And let's see, the bituminous curbing out back, we said you're gonna repair what's broken up there, at
We
least my-
recommended it. They haven't.
Yeah, I mean,
confirmed yet.
when I visited there a number of times, the bituminous curbing in back, actually, because there were slabs that were put over there in the woods, basically the whole thing is busted up. I think repair is probably not something that, if you look.
Rebuild, perhaps?
You'd have to replace the whole thing. It's just, there were slabs on it. You can see how it's busted up the entire way, so that would be something,
They should have access to granite curbs.
I knew, but you.
you would think.
Yeah.
And that's what I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bill. Ernie?
Just a couple of things. Frank, I noticed that your crosshatch areas, the red crosshatch areas are the storage areas, is that what you're saying?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, the ones on the right seem to abut some parking spaces. How will you get to the parking spaces after you store the granite there?
So, these parking spaces along here, we're not gonna use those spaces.
All right, so they shouldn't be on the plan as parking
Well,
spaces, or what?
What we're proposing to use that area for is snow storage. That was an issue.
Okay,
when we
maybe-
bought it last time. So, again, we're presuming that the granite place will be there for a long period of time.
Okay.
The landowners, if these folks go away, want to be able to maintain in the future the existing parking.
Okay.
So, we couldn't access these spaces, like you brought up.
Right.
We don't need them for parking at this point in time, but they're pavement. It's some of the stuff that DEP likes to have snow storage on paved areas, because it drains off. So that's why we put those, because they couldn't get access to them, is the honest answer on that. And it makes, a good-sized area for snow storage.
Do you think marking it as temporary snow storage or something
We
might
certainly
make
could do- yeah,
sense?
I don't, that would not, you could put a sign up there, you could paint it on,
Whatever.
whatever.
On the plan, I mean,
Oh,
so
yes.
we'll know what's going on. and-
Again,
Oh, it
we
is.
noted on there originally, this is the quick.
Okay, I might have missed it.
But we will make sure that's
Yep.
on there.
It's on there.
Is it on there? Sorry, Josh, I
No,
missed
it's
it
fine.
then.
It's hard to see.
And the same with the other storage, actually, Frank, is that they're all sitting on, all the storage, well, not all the storage. That storage is blocking those parking spaces. You're not going to use those, I understand. The other storage is on top of the parking spaces.
Right, so again, none of these spaces here and here are needed for the site at this point. For the showroom, we have those 12 spaces in the front with the handicap.
Right.
For the parking, now again, if we relocate vans somewhere else, we may lose some of that storage area, but we'll just put them there instead of storage areas.
All right, so the three vans, I assume the drivers pull out the van, pull their car in, and they take the van, then they do the opposite when they come back. And
They,
how about employees?
So, this used to be Lester's, this is our site, used to be
Yep,
Lester's.
right.
This was most recently a party gown or something, I'm not very good at that. It's empty right now, they own that, and they have parking spaces here they use for their staff. They park here and then they walk.
These people own it, or the landlord owns it?
These folks, the owners of the Granite Place, Jonathan and Carol own this site.
Okay, and
That's where they park, they have parking there.
is that the site that was, the last time I was there, which maybe 3 weeks ago, was, is that where the pest company is?
Yes.
Oh, no,
sitting?
the pet company is,
Yeah.
sort of Poetic
Oh,
Justice,
oh,
it's now where Lester's.
One further over. It was where there was a dental.
Oh, okay, yep, I know the
We're
building.
here, this used to be Lester's, this is now Northwest Pest, and then this
The
is
next
the building
building after
that had
Lester's,
prom
okay.
gowns, I think, a while ago, they moved down the center.
Okay, I didn't hear that. And as far as concerns about the backup alarms, you might want to look into, they're not that new, actually. They have what they call ambient backup noise backup alarms. So the volume of the backup alarm is adjusted depending on what the ambient noise level is outside. In other words, it's a real quiet night, then they come down from 95 decibels to whatever. So it's a little better. You still may hear them if you're next door to them, but they're a little better, because we've had problems with that, but and they're more expensive, obviously, but they're automatic, you don't have to adjust them, it just happens.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
I guess that's all I have right now, thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
If I may follow up, question of staff, have we not in the past where spaces, the owner of the property wants to not abandon the spaces, wants to reserve them, we have marked them on the plan as parking spaces in reserve, indicating they're not being used, but they're reserved?
We usually do it when there's green space and we want to hold green space until they're kind of prove that they need it. That's how we've done it typically in the past. We would want, at a minimum, a note on the plan with an understanding of the, because with any use, you have to approve the required parking spaces. This use is kind of a different animal, so you're gonna have to say, fewer parking spaces work because, however, if there's another use, that they still are there and they can be reused later. But you're gonna have to make a finding within the decision that fewer parking spaces
Are
per the
needed.
bylaw is okay because of the explanation of the use.
But as Frank's position was, they didn't want to abandon the spaces, the landlord didn't want to abandon the spaces in case these people leave and a different use came
Right,
in
and
required.
we're not, in the areas where they're using storage on top of the parking spaces, they're not being used for parking spaces, and we have an understanding that that's the case, but they're not pulling them up to make them green space.
Have the site plan marked as such?
We would have a note, at a minimum, a note explaining as such.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm taking a step back and looking at this a little differently. This is for outdoor storage incidental to permitted uses. The permitted use is the showroom. That's what's allowed here. And outdoor storage can be allowed as a incidental use to the main use. But what I'm seeing here is a very small showroom and a whole lot of storage. It kind of flipped. It's almost like this is storage with an incidental use of a showroom. So that's what I'm grappling with. This is a lot of outdoor storage. Much more than the actual footprint of the showroom, especially when you're going to have some storage inside as well. And that's what I'm looking for, some guidance, I think, from staff, because I don't understand how we can approve outdoor storage as an incidental use to something when the storage itself is probably
The primary use.
3 times the size of the main use. It is the primary use, and the showroom is incidental to that. That's what I'm grappling with.
Excuse me, but right now, we use all 3 units. So,
I know.
so if B and C are used, I'm sorry, not B, A. A is the showroom and C is the fabrication. So if everything's fine with the fabrication, then we are okay, because then we'll,
Big if, we don't know that.
yeah.
But even so, the only permitted use here is the showroom. Everything else is not normally allowed in this zone and may be allowed if it's an incidental use. But it's not, it's the primary use that's the primary part of your business, is showing the granite, storing the granite, and fabricating the granite. The showroom's a little piece. And I'm not sure how we can justify that, and my concern is, I understand that you've done a good job of finding a way to store these slabs of granite where they hopefully will not be too disruptive to the neighborhood. I think you've done a good job doing that. The problem I have is, I don't think it fits into the zone of this property. And if we were to allow something like this, what's to stop the next person from saying, well, I want to have a whole bunch of outdoor storage too, and we have to think about that. It's not just one piece of property that we have to consider when we make these decisions, because they set a precedent. And that is the major concern that I have about this. Not counting the fabrication, which is a separate issue we'll discuss next time.
This is a very rough, I apologize for not 100% listening to you when you were talking. The crosshatched areas are about 4,600 square feet, my very quick calculation. Those areas are based upon what's out there right now. And so right now, there are two sets of slabs side by side. That's about a 12-foot length. And then there's a 6-foot area between them for access to the slab.
So about 4,600 square feet of outdoor storage space.
But a portion of that is an aisle inside the storage to access the slabs.
Well, I don't think that really matters. So all of this cross-hatched area amounts to 4,600 square feet.
Plus this front left is considered storage
The
area.
inside storage as well.
No, I have not looked at the inside.
No, I understand that. The showroom is 3,000 square feet. So you're making my point. Sorry.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're not going to make a decision about this tonight. With more information we need, but this is something that I am having a very hard time justifying for that reason. So now that we've had further discussion, I want to give the audience another opportunity if they have any other questions now that they've heard what we discussed, and if not, we're going to continue and move on to the next item. Is there anyone in the audience that had any further questions? Yes, sir. Can you use the microphone, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jack Bajakian, and I'm one of the landlord. My brother-in-law is my associate, and the support is 100%. We really don't like see any abandoned building because we have hundreds of them in Burlington areas. So I really hate to see that. So
Okay,
I
thank you.
support them 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, the applicant just noted to me what they're looking to do, and we'll get more details for the next time, is, so where the Mother Thrift was, they may not use that for indoor storage, they may use all or part of that for an expanded showroom. That's something that we just learned about.
Okay.
So that, again, we may have a larger area for showroom when that happens, so we can get you that information.
I understand. I'm going to have a hard time getting to the point where this looks like an incidental use to the showroom use, but, you know, we can look at that as it goes on. And I'm one person on this board. My vote is of no greater weight than anyone else's. That's my concern, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you want a motion?
I do, thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to continue these matters to the planning board meeting of September 19th, 2019.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Stay, okay, so it's 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we are on item G, a continued public hearing, petition to amend the Northwest Park Plan Development District zoning bylaw provisions submitted by the Norbloom Development Company. Welcome. It's a very cheerful tie, Bob.
It is.
I like the color.
You've been hanging around with Frank too long.
What's that?
I said you've been hanging around with Frank too long.
Well, it's not quite as wild as one of Frank's
Please,
ties.
please.
That's subtle cheer.
Different type of chair.
So as we had a meeting, as you know, so what we're hoping to do tonight is just get an update for the public as to what has changed since our last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So people get to know who you are. For the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. To my immediate left is Christine Hung from my office. And all the way down in is Todd Fremont Smith. We are here this evening to continue the discussion with the proposed amendment of the Northwest Plan Development District to add 300
additional units of multifamily housing. Since we've been here last, we've had a number of meetings. We've met with the Land Use Committee, we've met with the Bylaw Committee, we've had a subcommittee meeting. And through those discussions, I have met, I've made an outreach to the selectmen to get on their agenda. I've also had, reached out to get on the housing partnership, I always get it wrong. Is it the Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee, to have some discussions on that. Just a quick summary of the history here. About 2 plus years ago, and I want to compliment the town. I acted through the planning board, because it was the initiative of staff and the planning board to, whether you believed in it or not, to take the initiative to do a friendly 40B, to preempt any opportunity to expose the town to an unfriendly 40B, because for those who don't know it, next year they reset the numbers with the census in 2020 for the affordable housing component. So you did the friendly 40B, so-called, behind Lundana on the Davis site, Burlington Corporate Center, which is nearing completion. As a result of that, you have 270 units that will soon be online that will all count towards your subsidized housing inventory, which in my numbers or my opinion, and I think Kristen, you're not gonna go through the numbers tonight, are you? Okay. At the right time, we'll go through the numbers. I think we'll provide you with the protection that I don't think you'll ever have to worry unless everything changes, but I don't see that happening. So you have the flexibility to do some creative things if you so choose. It's your choice. You're in a catbird seat. So we were talking over the last few months, and the two projects that the Nordblum Company have done at Northwest Park as part of the evolution of the park, the Huntington and Tremont, have been very successful. They have an affordable component. Leased up much quicker than was anticipated, which shows that there is a need, and it's very responsive to the needs of that area. It's an isolated area that has all the amenities, all the things that one would want to create a very successful project over there, and it's been a 12-year endeavor. Doesn't seem it, but it's been 12 years, and it's continuing to evolve. So we said, let's try to do something as creative as we can be. And one of the things that I learned through sitting through a number of meetings on the master plan committee was that there is a need for senior affordable housing in many communities, not just Burlington, but many communities. And it's a complicated equation. It's a complicated issue. There are emotional issues. There are financial issues, well beyond the discussion that we can get into tonight, but I think that discussion has to occur at the right time. But people are being forced eventually out of their residences and can't live in the town where they have spent their adult life. And I think there's an educational component, there's a financial component, and I think the town, have the ability to set the rules now. You don't have to worry about the state. You can set the criteria that you want to do, and you're in control. Subject to some overriding the Fair Housing Act, whatever, but you did it about 15, 20 years ago with Grandview. That's a different product, that's a for-sale product, but you have to create options, and one of the options might be rental housing. Maybe in the future it's condominiums, but again, you're in control. You don't have to worry. So we've had those discussions, a few things that have come out of those discussions. There's a fear that you don't want a large project, so we've agreed through these discussions that there'll be smaller format buildings. I think the Huntington is, what, 170?
Similar to what we've already built. So there are two apartment buildings at Northwest Park currently. One was 180 units, and the second one was 117 units.
So I think we've agreed that they will not be any bigger than the small units. We spent a lot of time with the bylaw review and the land use talking about where should they go. We don't know. And rather than try to at this point in time say they should go here and here. I think that we should let the evolution of the park decide where they should go. We have to come back here anyhow, but let's let, one of the things that we talked about, which you haven't heard because we went back and we talked about this, that there are tenants in Area A that are growing because it's been so successful, that they may have to move out of where they are now, and it would be nice to move them to area, in our mind, we have Area A and B, we don't want to get into that, and we don't want to forestall the opportunity to locate them in Area B because we've built something there that now we have to move them out of Burlington. So we want to do the flexibility, but we do have to come back here because for those that, I know the people, some people in the audience understand this, a PDD is a PD special permit, so you always have to come back to the planning board to have that review. So it's not a question of as of right, site plan review. There's always that control. So we have that. One of the things that I know it came up through some of the subcommittee and the planning board, as drafted today, it calls for 10% affordable under the state guidelines. So we said, well, I don't say we said, we were told that, damn, well, that's what it said 12 years ago. We're not going to live with that. So we've agreed to up that to 13% affordable. But you decide. You can go senior affordable housing. You can qualify them for the state programs. It's your decision. And you can flip-flop over time. You don't have to stay 10 years from now, if you decide that, maybe we want to switch back to qualifying them under the state program, then you can do that. It's your decision. So it's maximum flexibility. And I would venture to say you're going to find that a lot of communities are going to look at this and say, how did they do it? Because I'm involved with some other communities around you that are looking at this saying, how did they get there? Can we do the same thing? And, you just need to have that cushion. A lot of the communities don't have the cushion. You have it. So I don't know if I've missed anything. We're going to go to the September town meeting. I think we have the changes are very simple. And they're simple to us because when we started this 12 years ago, our consultants told us to make this work, you need 1,200 units. And as the committee that was working with the town, working with this subcommittee that was formed, we said, do 300, then come back if you need more. So that's what we're doing. And so that, that's what we're doing. And we feel that it's an evolution of a project, and you have a unique opportunity because you have one landowner. You don't have many different landowners who have different motivations. I don't know if I've missed
Yeah, and
anything.
we did bring slides, but in the interest of time and counter to my deep-rooted need to talk to slides, we're not going to do that tonight. So,
Okay.
But I will say that we've become very excited about this idea of creating senior affordable housing. We do have senior tenants at the park now. Older, we call them seniors, but empty nesters at the park now, and there's
Age-targeted,
some of our
age-targeted.
best, most excited tenants. They just love being there. They love walking to Wegmans. They love the fact that there's an elevator that brings them right up from a garage up to a flat apartment where they don't have to climb any stairs. So, and we're hoping to have an open house between now and town meeting where people can see this building and see what we're proposing. It's a very high-quality living environment. It's really a condominium quality environment, and the affordability math is very significant. It cuts the rent basically in half. So what was, a meaningful rent gets just chopped more than half, and it becomes very, very affordable. And I think when you look at those numbers, and so if you picture, if we did these two smaller buildings and whatever percentage we arrive at, if you picture 40 brand-new condominiums being sort of the town and Nordblom working together to bring that to market, that's a significant block of senior housing. That, I don't know how big Grandview Farm is, but 40 condos, brand new with parking under, and
Yes.
it's a meaningful thing. And if that's something that resonates with the board, we'd love your support.
You might be misleading some people, Todd. There'd be apartments in
They're
the
apartments,
condos?
yeah. The Nordblom family will manage them for the next 90 years because they've done that for the last 50 years. But they feel like condominiums in terms of acoustic quality, in terms of finishes, just the amenities in the building with outdoor roof terraces and fitness centers and
Walkability, pedestrian.
walkability, yeah. And it is good also, these buildings have really helped the shops at Third Ave. and retail is in a weird place, but people do come down 2-3 nights a week and have dinner or get a drink, just watch a game. Go to Wegmans, there's a real synergy between housing and grocery stores in particular, but also the restaurants. And Third Ave, just to say it on TV, because I know there have been some questions, Third Ave's doing really, really well. We tried to get into a restaurant last Wednesday night. We went to Redstone. They told us it was an hour-and-a-half wait. Went to Bancroft, hour-and-a-half wait. We went to Nino's, which hour-and-a-half wait. So we went over to the district, and we got in over there. But some of the restaurants are doing really, really well. I hope they're, I don't want to hear from.
Did you say you went to the district?
No, the district's a great project.
Was it you and
These
Bob that they
restaurants-
kept turning away, both of you?
You don't have any pull over there?
Shops at
Have you
Third Ave
tried
are
any
very strong.
V's yet?
Yeah.
Have you tried any V's?
Before I hand this over to the board, I did want to make a couple of comments about senior housing and the need for senior housing in Burlington. And it's one of the things that we've spent a lot of time talking about as part of the master plan project. And what we heard during that whole process from Burlington residents is that Burlington residents in general do not want more anything. They don't want more restaurants or businesses or traffic. The only things they said they wanted were a pool and more affordable senior housing options. And at our last housing forum, we had some pretty detailed conversations about this, and I came to the conclusion that the only way we can provide affordable options for Burlington seniors, not seniors moving in from wealthier communities that are downsizing to Burlington, but Burlington residents who have lived here and raised their families here, the only way we can do that is if the town is involved, because otherwise it's going to be too expensive. So that's why I'm interested in this proposal, because it does give us an opportunity. You mentioned that, and I don't know if you are comfortable talking about what you think the price points would be for these apartments, because we are asking the question, as I'm asking the question,
Right.
is that the right rate for Burlington seniors? Is that going to be attractive to the people that we're trying to help? And I don't know the answer to that question, but if we are comfortable discussing those monthly rates here today, people who are watching could
Yeah,
come and give us
We can
feedback.
discuss them in more detail. I think, I know there have been updated state guidelines, but they're literally, it's more than half off, so.
Can I comment on that? One of the
Yes.
things I've learned through this process, I learn every day, as I tell you, right? I do tell you that, right? You with us? I actually think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think that in terms of seniors don't understand what their options are, and I don't think it's a question of the town not doing a good job. I think it's a situation where seniors are afraid. I mean, as you age, I think change becomes increasingly more frightful. And when you sit down and you say, you know, when you read a paper, Paul, you were looking at the paper earlier, and you start looking at rents at $3,000, or someone says, okay, it's $3,200, but affordable units are $1,500, half of that, all right? And someone says $1,500 for an apartment. How do they afford that? How could I afford that? And when you say, okay, let's sit down. How much do you pay in property taxes? How much do you pay in insurance? How much do you pay in utilities? And you run the numbers, and how much do you worry that your roof is going to fail, that your water heater is going to fail, and you don't have the money to fix it? Or, you know, it's really an educational process. Change becomes a big issue.
Which is why in our meeting, we actually talked about Nordblom perhaps sponsoring a community forum where we would have a financial advisor come in and work with seniors and help them figure out what they can afford.
And I think that could be part of this partnership.
Right.
that
Right.
we've set
One of
up.
the things the town is also, look, I'm not gonna get into the politics. One of the things that you did on the Davis site is you have a fund that when that opens, you'll have $600,000 that you ought to use. And I'm not gonna tell you how to use it, but it could be that maybe there are people that you subsidize rents, that if someone can't afford it, or, and I don't know what the needs are. All I know is that at Thanksgiving, and I know a lot of people sitting up here are very involved with people helping people. If you don't think there are people in this community that need help, you're kidding yourself. So there are people that need help. And so when you sit down and you take some of that money and you start asking some of the questions, you're in a very unique situation. So maybe it works, maybe you choose it or not, but you're in a very unique situation.
Okay, thank you. Staff, did you want to weigh in?
A little bit, yeah. So we did crunch some numbers. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but in general, where we are right now for affordability and our subsidized housing inventory held by the state, we would need to add over 2,500 additional units to have the denominator, and that's looking at real-time data, not just 2010 data to 2020 data, to again reach a threat to the 10% number. So therefore, we do have a substantial cushion. The last time we were over 12% was when we explored the Grandview project, because at that time, as it is now, that there was a need and desire for local affordable senior housing, that especially for seniors that were moving out of their homes, so therefore their asset limitations were a lot higher than what is under the SHI guidelines under DHCD and HUD SHI subsidized housing inventory guidelines. So therefore, if we want to explore, because we have the cushion, some local options, senior affordable housing, we do need to take on that project, look at what we did at Grandview, but we also need to work with the selectmen, the Housing Opportunities Partnership, and the assessor as the affordable housing chair, I'm not forgetting. But anyway, work with all of us so we can look at guidelines, criteria, and what does this kind of framework look like if we're going to have a local option for affordability. And with that, I don't think we need to have it 100% ready to go at town meeting, but I think we absolutely need to have the buy-in, understanding, and universal kind of consensus among all these individuals that need to be part of this discussion, to have some sort of outline put together before we get to town meeting, that this is something real, that we can focus on, and that Nordblom has agreed to have, whether it's all of the 39, half of the 39, however we want to structure this. Just we need to work on the town side with the applicant on what this is going to look like before the end of September. So I think, and that's why the meeting's set up for the 27th, and that's the focus of that meeting. And as well, I think Nordblom is going to have an open house at the Huntington? The Huntington probably, so we can also get a feel of what the product looks like and kind of take a look at units and types and just kind of understand a little bit more about what more housing might look like. As far as the A and B construct, I mean, it literally was A and B lines drawn on a map when we passed the PD. They don't really have, they made sense at the time because we were worried that this is an office park, a thriving office park. We don't want it to turn into something else. At this point, we've seen a lot of great amenities added to the park. I don't think we should be worried that it's going to turn into something else. So I'm less concerned about this A and B thing. I mean, it made sense at the time, but I don't know if it makes sense today, knowing that where we've grown. So that's all I have. It's just, I think we definitely need some strong leadership on the town side if we're going to look at local option, which I think is a great time to do it. We have the cushion, we have the possibility. Grandview took a lot of effort. I think Member Impemba was on the selectmen at the time when we were doing the Grandview criteria. We had Jane Hyde leading the housing partnership. She was a really strong advocate for affordable housing, and she did great work. So we just need, again, to bring that leadership together to make this happen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jack, do you have some comments?
Yes, the question, and you raised it, affordability, and I think, and Attorney Buckley sort of indirectly referred to it, that people may not be fully aware of what they're spending. And I try to do some calculations that a typical homeowner who's looking to move out of their single-family home for health reasons, maintenance reasons, they're paying north of $4,000 a year in taxes, north of $1,000 in homeowners insurance, 1,000 on maintenance and utilities. You know, there's $7,000 they're spending right away. If they were to sell their house for $450 after the Registry of Deeds takes their bigger tax now that they just raised it, they, in other expenses, they may end up with $400,000 provided they don't have a mortgage. And if interest rates being as lousy as they are, if they got another $8,000 a year in interest from that $4,000, there's $15,000 a year. And if you divide that by 12, that's $1,250. You know, so that's in the park that you're saying the rents are. Although to somebody who's sitting in their house not paying a mortgage, $1,250 sounds like a lot of money, but when they add up the expenses, it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, it is.
So I think with education, and I would be asking you folks to reach out and do some of that education to our seniors, make it understandable that what their true costs are, and if they wisely invest the equity in their house, this may be something that they could do.
Yeah.
Not everyone's gonna do it, but it, yeah.
No.
Good, because we only have somewhere between 39 and 45 units, so they
Yeah,
can't all
right.
do it.
Which is a lot, but it's not too much.
So let's not make it too attractive because you only get 39 units. But I think that we need to let people know what the numbers are, what they're really spending, and what the difference to them would be to move out of their house and hopefully protect their nest egg, unless the nursing home eats it up later on them. It's doable. So I'm anxious to see what the program is. A couple of times in your presentation, Bob, you said you make the decision, meaning the town. Tell me how you see, you know, who in the town makes the decision as to how we want it?
Well,
Who within the town, you know, town meeting has the authority to zone it,
right.
but the particulars of
Generally,
it.
in order, what you have to do, Jack, you have to put a regulatory agreement on the property to bind it in perpetuity.
Yep.
And that's generally negotiated on behalf of the town.
By?
It's generally, you decide. It has to be executed by it's usually the
You
selectmen.
say you decide. Who's you?
You decide. The selectmen, no.
Okay.
The town is the selectmen, I assume they're gonna
Okay,
get
so-
everyone in. Just as today, you have affordable units in the Huntington and the Tremont. There's a regulatory agreement
Between,
the town
which is
by
the
the
selectmen.
selectmen.
By the selectmen.
In the housing partnership, just as Davis has a regulatory agreement. I believe that was the ZBA and the selectmen who signed that. Were you on that when that was signed?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who.
At the
Yeah.
risk of seeming rude, I think that's something we can probably discuss offline, because
Okay.
we do have a full agenda, and it's not something that we can resolve on our own. It's not just the planning board. We do need and we have this meeting set up on the 27th to start talking about that, so please come.
My
And-
thinking is, we're gonna be asking town meeting to make a decision. Our function in this is to hold a public hearing, so town meeting gets the information they need.
But the
I'm
agreement is
thinking
pretty
that some of
standard.
that is information that town meeting needs in order to make the decision.
I agree, and this will not be our last meeting before town meeting. I
Okay.
think we need to have that meeting on August 27th, where the Board of Selectmen will be there, so that we can talk with them and figure out how we're going to do it, because we can't make this decision without them.
I assume, could I just say, I assume, and I would certainly recommend, that the town, as you define it, would want to have town council.
Yes.
It's a fairly standard agreement, because he wanted to go on in perpetuity, so that they don't go away, you know, so I can't tell you how to run your shop.
We do, I will note, on September 5th, the only two things on that meeting it was a town meeting only, we added the town project, so this applicant and the DPW garage are the only two things on our September 5th meeting.
Do you
So
just bring coffee? We'll be here all night.
It was, just, it's not as
Well, let
packed
me
as this
just
evening.
point out, the tripart, the land swap agreement was written during a blizzard. You may remember this. I got stuck in my office for 3 days, and I stayed at the Candlewood Hotel, and I survived for 3 days on bagels and wrote the agreement over 3 days. So maybe
we'll
that's
hope-
not a bad idea.
We'll hope for we can do this without a natural disaster. Thank you, Jack. Are you done?
Yes, you told me I am.
Paul?
Briefly, I'm not in the ballpark on this, because previously, when we've tried to get affordable housing, somebody's building a housing development, and they know that they have to have 10%, because that's what we tell them, when that's as far as you go, you have to have 10%. How about doing 15%? They say, no, the banks won't allow us to do this, allow us to do that, because we're depending upon the rents to pay off the mortgage. And you can't build and run and so forth on less than our rents. So how do we get to a point where and I've said to people, they said, well, why don't you build some more like Grandview? I said, the town owns the land. I said, if we had some more land that the town could buy and wanted to, you could do it that way. But that's the only way you can do it financially, to get the money to support the project. So I don't understand how right now, you're telling us that we can build affordable housing with very affordable, much more so, rents for the apartments and condos and so forth. And so I have to understand all of that before I vote on anything, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Paul.
And by the way, that's, we're talking about what you hear from the town. Everybody hears traffic, and a lot of people hear housing. And the other thing I hear, because I'm of that age, my wife has a number of friends, and they live in New Hampshire, and they live everywhere else, because we don't have affordable housing that's available to them. And in those condos, they're not paying nothing, but we don't have the housing that can accommodate them. So this sounds beautiful, but let's see, going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, so
Joe?
I think it's a phenomenal idea. I don't know if you remember the timeframes, but actually, when I was on the Board of Selectmen the first time, I think it was somewhere roughly in 1992 area, I actually was the one who initiated the Senior Housing Options Committee. I was the selectman who started that on the board, and I was the liaison probably for 50, at least 12 of 13 of the years I was on the
We're
board.
showing our age, Joe.
Yeah, that's right. But in that, we've managed to bring in assisted living, we've managed to bring in senior condos at the Grandview Farm, we've managed to bring in different types of affordable senior housing, but this piece, this would be the first, to bring in actually some rental units that were for Burlington seniors.
And these
make
would
them
be for
affordable.
Burlington seniors, not for the
Right.
open market,
Right.
so it's.
And I think this is one of the senior housing options, these are one of the senior housing options that we don't have. And I think it's a great, it couldn't be a better location. I drive down Third Ave, and it's one of those projects that I beam to have been part of that project, to be honest with you. It's just, you guys have done a phenomenal job down there. It's one of the best projects in the state of Massachusetts by far. and-
When you yell at me, see, there are people who
Don't
think.
yell at you.
Oh, it really is, and you hear it from people all over the place. Oh, yeah, I spend a lot of time down there, but people in surrounding towns and even 10 miles away, 15 miles away, spend a lot of time down there. So, this, to add additional housing is gonna be one of those assurances that development is gonna continue to thrive into the future.
And the beauty, Joe, is it's intergenerational, mixing the generations of its stability. It sustains the development.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having grandchildren visiting there.
No,
You don't want to separate necessarily generations and have them live separately.
Oh, that's exactly right. And I think it couldn't be a more perfect time to do it. So I'm, excited about it, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Joe.
I call that Todd's dream. And Monty Pearson sitting back there, he's land use, and the first place you go is land use, and I was the liaison, so it was interesting to watch it. But I thought when you were first talking, I said, well, we'll see. But you did it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of being brief, I like where we're moving with this project. I like that Nordblom's been very helpful and amenable to all of our requests, and I look forward to continuing our discussion on the 27th. We just have to get you better access at the restaurants over there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. You're right, I would mirror Member Raymond's comment with regard to town ownership. The town is buying up property, and, is there, an opportunity here for a land swap? We bought up Clark and Reed for the DPW project we just saw today, so is there an initiative from the town to buy similar properties that we could put senior housing on, right? Or maybe have property that we could purchase, and then somebody else could do another land swap like we did with Grandview.
Well, town meeting had a resolution which was buried by one person, unfortunately, to consider purchasing Building 19 and a half site. And the thinking was
Excuse me, the
that you
shops
could
at
put
Simon's.
you could put some senior housing and put commercial development to support the senior housing. And it went before town meeting, it was late, it was a long meeting, and somebody got up who was a former selectman and said, we don't want to be in the real estate business, and that.
I think we have to with
Yes.
the initiative master plan.
We have to.
The other thing I've been hearing, the half of the rent, and so I've been saying half of what? And I know there's been a number 1,200 that bounced around that you said. I didn't hear it from the application, from the applicant, so I'd be interested to hear that number, so that's
We'll
out there.
figure those out and bring them next time.
Thank you. The other thing with regard to putting more housing in rental housing in that area is that you have kind of a bias to people not participating in town government. I've got a sister-in-law that's on town meeting, and she lives on the other side of town where there are a number of apartments. And for her to try to find registered voters to sign to get her into town meeting was unbelievably hard because they're not registered and they don't participate in government. So now putting another 300 over there is going to be another problem with kind of putting kind of the town government upside down and being very difficult to, because now you bias it to renters and things like that.
At least the seniors that now live in Burlington are the biggest voting bloc, so those seniors will come with them.
Yeah, but even town meeting representation, now you're swinging the population over to a different district. I'm just telling you the realities of it and how difficult is that. In the meeting the subcommittee that I attended, and I apologize for leaving early on that one, but I know Mr. Pearson had talked about this 13% that's on the proposal here, and I think Mr. Fremont Smith said that it's a request to go back to ask for 15, where that's the kind of the number that we have on exclusionary zoning. And I left early. Was there a determination on that was going to be going back to check on the 15?
Well, I think we're going to keep talking about that number. It does, the answer to that question is it becomes very mathematically difficult to finance these projects as you go beyond 13. The city of Boston for many years was at 13%, and that is still their base affordability rate. They're starting to go higher for political reasons. When you start to raise that number, and I don't want to take all night to talk about this, and we can show you the math, it's just that the return gets lower and lower, and then capital partners are less and less likely to, so it's less and less likely that the building gets built.
Okay,
You start to get cheaper materials, hollow doors.
I'm just trying to see if the numbers.
The one exception I could say with the city of Boston, because I do a lot, is the city of Boston, while maybe 15%, you can buy off that obligation. So it's not a 15%. Here, when you do the
Part of
obligation.
it off-site or something.
Well, you contribute to a fund. You contribute to a fund, so you can lower that number. And you don't want that.
No, we don't.
Okay. And
It's
just,
on calculus, so.
I'm just trying to see if the 13 is going to be the number, because we're getting very close to the date you bring it to town meeting, so if it's,
Well, we have to file the warrant article tomorrow, so.
so the
if you see-
13 is the number.
We're going in with 13, we'll
Okay.
see where it
Thank you.
goes. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think everybody's said almost everything that I wanted to say. The only thing I wanted to bring to, and I'll use my 2.5, 3 minutes to do this, to bring to people's attention is, although these units would be senior affordable, they wouldn't be state regulated.
Right.
So the town would be able to set the most important thing to seniors who live in houses is the asset limit, because they're way above the asset limit when they sell their house. Asset limit right now for affordable housing is somewhere under $100,000.
Big problem.
So there's a big problem when you sell your house, but in this case, obviously, the
It
town
violates the rules. Yep.
has to set the limits, but,
It's more the income limit that you have to worry about, so.
well,
yeah.
I'd say the asset
Yeah,
limit
yeah,
really, Bob, but,
You can set whatever you want.
the income limit obviously you have to be capable of paying the rent.
You can
but-
also set preferences for, as you do on Grandview, I'm sorry.
Grandview.
Yeah.
But I'm very much in favor of this, and I'm sure that it would be cited in an area which is conducive to, especially if you're going to have 15 or 13%, whatever it turns out to be, senior affordable, where, because you wouldn't want seniors necessarily walking up a hill
Well,
to get to.
Wegmans.
And they're
Yeah,
being
yeah.
designed, parking underneath
they won't
elevators, it's designed.
Get to Wegmans, I'm thinking.
Oh, I'm
you know.
sorry.
But if they walk down the hill to get to Wegmans, then they
They
gotta
have
go
to
home.
walk up the hill back to, right, I know.
They use
All right.
Wegmans electric car to get back.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. Oh, Mr. Pearson, please come forward.
Want to sit?
I'll just stand. I'm Monty Pearson. I'm Precinct 3 Town Meeting and Chairperson Land Use Committee. And Ernie, you did me a favor because you reminded me of my father, who told me that he walked to school uphill, and it was uphill going back home too, whenever I complained that he wasn't giving me rides. So, a blast from the past. I just want to point out to the committee that from the point of view of town meeting, and my committee is designed to report back to town meeting on our view on whether this is a good idea for the town. And we have kind of this is on the one hand and on the other hand kind of project, which is that on the one hand, we're bringing in 300 people who, we're bringing in a project that has 261 units that are not going to be necessarily people from Burlington, because the non-affordable units are going to be luxury housing. The developer's information says that the average income of people who live in the units that they already have in is $225,000. So it's not housing, so 261 units are not going to be housing for the kind of folks who live in a middle-income community like Burlington. And on the other hand, there's this small number of units, 39, which would go and directly fit a need of the town for housing for seniors who are looking for a place to downsize to. And so the two things are being balanced back and forth. And one thing is something that we don't particularly need in town, and another thing is something that we specifically need in town. And my committee is somewhat divided between people who come down one side or another on the balance of that. And I would say that those of us who are interested in affordable housing are disappointed that we don't have the 15% affordable units. There was a reason that we wanted, that we had an ordinance that says that, what is it, with preferential, what is the phrase?
Inclusionary.
Inclusionary zoning. The inclusionary zoning is 15%, and that number was set because we had a feeling that remember, affordable housing is, people with income of $60,000 is considered people who are eligible for affordable housing. So we're not talking about low-income housing. We're talking about housing that's affordable for people like the people sitting in this room. And, so maybe Bob.
We gotta get rid of that car out front.
At the first spot right there, you can't miss it.
They could have put that car at Vinnie
Parks it right in the
V's.
front door, yeah.
Yeah, the limo's got to go. So we would really like to see, people who want to have more affordable housing in town would really like to reach the 15 number. And we appreciate that they've gone to 13, but, 15 is better than 13, and we hope that the board will consider that while you're discussing this with them.
I definitely think, Mr. Pearson, that is going to be part of the negotiation.
Great.
Understood. And just at one small, I don't know if it's late, I would say the vast majority of our tenants are executives who work in Burlington, or frankly, divorcees who did live in Burlington, and maybe they need a new place in Burlington to live, and that's really our demographic, and we have empty nesters as well. And those are the three big buckets. I just talked to our manager today about it. So in some ways, people are connected to the community, and I might try to bring some of those people out to the open house, and
Okay.
they're not all yuppie scum from
Madam
some
Chair,
other town,
just
There
can-
are some of those too, but.
can
Some
I...
of my best friends
can
are
I
yuppie
ask
scum.
Todd,
Yeah.
at one time, you had showed us some figures, actual figures, people who work in Burlington?
Yes,
People who
43
used to live in Burlington and
Yeah.
now live in there?
Yeah,
But there
43%
was
of
actually-
the
I think-
tenants work in Burlington.
Okay, and a percentage
Very
of
high
those,
number.
a percentage of those, or a percentage of your tenants actually used to live in Burlington already, right? A small percentage.
You're correct, yes.
I think it would be good to have those figures available most of the time when you're,
Some of those questions are kind of personal, and we have to tease them out
Right.
of the applications.
well, we're not asking for names.
Right. Okay.
One thing that might be nice as well to have would be the percentage of people that live in those apartments that actually work in Northwest Park, because that addresses the concerns that people have about additional traffic.
Driving, yeah.
Thank you.
And
Is
the
there-
other thing seniors won't have is, I shouldn't say this, but I will, children that would impact the school system.
We love children. That's-
I love
There are
children.
very few that aren't staying with a divorced dad.
Is there
or something.
anyone else in the audience that would like to comment or question on this matter? No? Okay. I think-
Motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of September 5th,
Second.
6th.
Sixth?
One of those.
Fifth.
5th. Here we go.
Second.
Mike.
Second.
But with the notation, there will be some meeting on August 27th?
Yes. And
Yeah.
as many people that can attend, please come.
That's not a public, that's a meeting, right? That's
Well,
not a hearing, right?
No, it's not a hearing.
no, not a hearing, no.
What's the 27th? I'm
Do
sorry.
we get a second?
We're having a meeting on, Kristen sent out with, it's going to be
Yeah.
represented from the selectman's office, we're going to have.
It's to talk about the town side on local option.
Right,
And just really
yes.
figure out what is it that
Right.
we need to be
So
more a
it's been moved and
logistics
seconded to continue to September 5th. All those in
Can I ask a
favor?
question on August 27th?
Yes.
Will town council have weighed in on any of this by that time?
We need to first come up with something for town council to
Okay.
weigh in on, so.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. All
Thank
right.
you, and thank you for all who have come to the meetings and given their input. It's been well attended.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we are on items 7 and H. May I have a motion to take those two items together for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Item 7H is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.15, storage and disposal of oils and fuels and petroleum products of the zoning bylaws for Burlington Woods Drive. The Gutierrez Company is the applicant. Item 7I is a discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change for Burlington Woods Drive. The Gutierrez Company is the applicant. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
State your names for the record.
For the record, my
Yeah.
name is Scott Weiss with the Gutierrez Company. Next to me this evening is David Tintle, also from our office. He's our asset manager working on the property at 4 Burlington Woods, which is before you today. So we have those two applications before you. They're actually interrelated. One is for a concrete pad, basically changing the ground out there, the site plan. So that's minor engineering change. And the second is for fuel storage for the generator, the backup generator that we're putting on that concrete pad. So that's what's before you, fairly simple, straightforward, and routine. Just as a little bit of background, obviously, I was here about a year ago to request, and you granted a lab special permit for this building. Four-story building built as an office building that we got the permit and have endeavored and have started construction on converting it to be a lab-ready building for the life science community. This was actually a little bit prior to the town's adoption of life science zoning change, which we think is a great thing. We've done a lot of work in this field, obviously bringing Millipore Sigma to the community, which is a large life science presence here, and we're trying to build upon that. That is a growing industry, obviously nationwide, very much so in Massachusetts, and there's a growing activity in the suburbs, and we're trying to bring more of that to the community, more diversity to our mix of employment opportunities, and hopefully bring some more employees here to take advantage of all the amenities and more people to live and work in the community as well. So as part of that build-out and construction and conversion, there's a lot of differences in a building bones and infrastructure to make it ready for lab and life science use. The HVAC units that provide the air and recirculate have to turn over that air at a much greater rate. You have exhaust, the fume hoods for exhaust purposes. And we're not putting in any of the build-out within the space that a tenant would use. We're actually just putting in the capability for a tenant to come in and plug into those systems. Water capacity, drainage in the building, eye wash stations, and greater electricity. As part of all of that, there's an expectation that you will have backup power for reliability if you're running tests and evaluations. You cannot go down, you cannot have an electrical outage, so you must have a backup source of power. And so we're putting in that capacity so we're ready for the tenants. And that's what's before you here this evening.
Okay, thank you. Kristen?
We don't have any concern with the fuel storage and the concrete pad that is being poured. A question that did come up, just as it does with every diesel versus natural gas generator, that we just want to pose to the applicant to why diesel versus natural gas. We know that life science tenants that they hope to get, I know they've had a few almost tenants, which have been exciting, that need that 24-hour assurance that things never go down, just like we've approved at Leahy and for some other, some life science tenants, So if you want to answer that question, and then, based on the response, but overall, we don't have concern with this application.
Sure. So there's really three reasons why this is an on-the-ground diesel backup generator. And the primary one is, and this is not an absolute in every situation where you can go on the roof, you will, but diesel fuel where you can have it filled and ready and sitting there is considered a more reliable backup than the potential risk of natural gas. And, you hear about, obviously there were some concerns in the past in Massachusetts with natural gas systems. So a diesel backup generator is considered more reliable than a gas-powered system. It's the size of the generator. It isn't a overly large one. We've done larger ones in some of the other facilities, but its space on the roof and the ability to feed it and provide the service for gas was limited. So that's another reason. So is the gas reliability, the rooftop space, and the size of it. Those are sort of the three reasons for putting it on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Ernie?
I assume this is self-contained unit with the tank in the bottom type thing?
That's
or
right,
not?
belly tank, as they call it, double-walled leak,
Right.
leak detection system.
Any
Attenuation built in?
noise, right, noise
Yeah,
attenuation?
noise
Oh, I see.
attenuation. Actually, in the materials we submitted, it is the highest or lowest sound option is what we're installing there.
And how
Highest
about
protection.
any kind of screening to it? I can't tell from this plan.
Yeah, so at the moment, there isn't screening. There is on one side towards the entrance to the parking garage.
Right,
It is
okay.
close to the parking spaces on the south side. We could add some shrubs on the round to the other side as well.
Or maybe get the high school kids to paint now. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
No questions, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did you say the building was initially built for life science with that in mind? Or
No, it is actually built as an office building.
Okay.
There were a couple of things in this building that do make it advantageous for the conversion. The floors are a little bit higher in this office layout than you might usually build for office floors, which gives us enough room to install some of the equipment, and a couple other, the weights that it was planned for and the like, but none of the systems were part of the original building.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Joe?
I'm all set.
Paul?
No, Millipo is a nice catch. And,
Great for the town.
sure, I hope this works out for you, because once we get one in,
Yeah, thank you. I think, and I will say that I really do appreciate the work that the town's done, the board's done, Kristen has done in helping to advance life science activity in the town and our receptivity for those users, because it is a new wave and growing industry.
Nope, I'm all set.
One question, is there any need for bollards around this to make sure that the cars in the parking lot don't hit it?
Yep, that was a comment from the fire department as
Okay,
well,
it's in
and
there. Okay.
we're going to add bollards basically around, either drive aisle side, parking side,
Okay.
yes.
Very good. That answers my questions. Is there anyone in the audience that has a question on this matter? Seeing no one, let's move forward.
Motion to close the public hearing.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
Motion to approve the request of the Gutierrez Company for a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.15, storage and disposal of oils and fuels, petroleum products, to allow for an associated diesel generator at 4 Burlington Woods Drive, subject to the terms, conditions contained in Exhibit A attached. Amend?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. So that was for item H. Then we also need to close the public hearing on item I.
Is it-
Well-
It's not a public
It's
hearing,
not a
but-
public hearing.
Oh,
Just have to
sorry.
make the motion.
Sorry, just to continue. Okay, sorry, we need to.
Motion to approve the
Thank
request.
you.
Motion to approve the request for an approval of a minor engineering change for property located at 4 Burlington Woods Park Drive to install a concrete pad and associated 500 kW diesel generator and 1,700-gallon fuel storage tank as reflected on the plan entitled Proposed 100,000 square foot office building with parking below for 4 Burlington Woods Drive, Burlington, Mass., prepared by R.J. O'Connell and Associates, dated March 27th, 2014, revised to April 29th, 2014, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Good luck.
We look forward to hearing about your tenant soon.
We do too. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, we are on page 10.
I have motion to take 7J and 7K together, is that what we are, for discussion purposes?
Yes, thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Item 7J is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, the Burlington Mall, Shake Shack, Massachusetts LLC is the applicant. And item 7K is a discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall, Shake Shack, Massachusetts is the applicant. Welcome. I'm sure the teenagers who are up late are watching now. This is of interest to them, finally.
I can command no respect in my household with 3 teenagers, but all of a sudden they have some respect for me after I told them I represented Shake Shack. But I am pleased to be before you tonight for the record attorney Mark Vaughn, with Reamer Bronstein. With me is Samantha Goodman, who is an architect with Bergmeyer, the architectural firm that submitted the plans, and also Will Hoffrichter, who is with Shake Shack. He manages their Cambridge and their Seaport location. So we are here in connection with Shake Shack's desire to locate at the Burlington Mall. We have filed the special permit application and the minor engineering change application. If you're not familiar with Shake Shack, I know that Will can certainly give you some background on them. A concept that originated in New York City and successfully expanded select locations in the United States. With respect to Massachusetts, they don't have a large number of locations, to be honest with you. They've been very selective about where they locate. They have, I believe, 3 in Boston, 1 in Cambridge, and thus far only 2 suburban locations. One at Dixon Place in Dedham, one at the street, as it's called now, in Chestnut Hill. Those are the only 2 suburban locations. So they are looking to locate at the mall. We have a plan here that, I apologize if you can't see it all that well, but I think you're hopefully familiar with where they're located. But this is the Burlington Mall kind of aerial plan, if you would. This is the TBA building, which I know has been the subject of several applications that have been before the board recently for some restaurant activity. So this would actually be the first restaurant that's in the main Sears building itself. So this is the Sears end of the building, if you would. If you can see here, this is where that corridor is coming through with the T-spine, with the 2 different wings off of that. So this red hatched space here, and again, I apologize if you can't see it off that well, but this is the location here where Shake Shack would be locating. So they'd have access to the interior corridor itself within the mall, but also they'd have an exterior entrance at that location there. So they are about a 3,500 square foot restaurant in size. They have a total of 88 seats inside. I understand their operation, all their items are cooked, to order. They're known for their burgers. I did give Josh some menus to hand out to have them to, get some understanding if you haven't been there before as to what they offer. But I think they will be a very nice addition to the Burlington Mall. I know that this is exactly the type of tenant that Simon was seeking, to be able to reinvigorate that end of the mall with Sears' unfortunate demise from a couple of years ago. We do have a plan that shows it's been submitted with the application package, Madam Chair, but again, this is just the floor plan. This is the corridor down here, and so they have this access egress into the main corridor, and there's also an egress only at this end, which is closer to the men's and the ladies' restrooms. And then this would be the front entrance off of the parking lot itself. Again, 88 seats, and they actually have a kiosk here for folks that want to order by way of a computer or download or whatever that high-tech stuff is that I don't quite understand. So, and then the other plans have been submitted as well that you have that just show the exterior. So there's this plan here, I'm sorry. This plan here shows the front entrance. This is the parking field here. There's a kind of a handicap sidewalk entrance here right in front. And we're going to have 2 benches that would be outside. There's no plan for exterior seating at the restaurant, so there just would be 2 benches that would be located out front for people to be able to sit at if they were waiting for someone inside or wanted to, sit out at one of the benches. So with that, I don't know if you have anything, but obviously very excited to have the chance to locate here in Burlington. But happy to answer any questions. I don't want to be too long on the tooth here. I know the night is
Before we
getting
do
late.
that, what is this third page of the handout? This thing?
Oh, yeah.
Architectural. It's like, just looking out at it. Oh, that's a door?
Is that
This is the exterior elevation of the.
Two benches and
Yeah, the two benches are right here, bench here, bench here.
Okay.
This is the front entrance door here. And this is just the kind of entry facade, and I think.
So that's those graphics that are going to be on the outside? Or,
We will have one sign, but I don't know if you've ever seen a Shake Shack before, but they typically have a sign band, which is, they'll have a sign band channel that will run right here with signage above. And then they'll just have a almost black colored tile down below, and above it's fiber cement panels. So it's not graphics, it's panels that kind of align with the Shake Shack design, where it's fun, it has the cool
so
angles.
they're colorful but not lit?
They're actually gray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're gray, but the some of them have more of a striation type of a pattern to it, and then
Structure?
some
Okay,
are
I mean,
flat. And then above here, we do have EFIS that will be painted more of like a dark green to kind of align with the Shake Shack green, and then this will also be painted dark green.
And none of it is lit except possibly the sign?
Yeah, just the sign.
Thank you. Kristen?
Sure. Overall, we do not have any concern about Shake Shack. There is a lot of excitement around Shake Shack. And it's, anyway, but we do have a couple comments. First, just as we've noted before, but overall, we've done a lot of changes to the Burlington Mall, and we actually don't have a whole plan updated, so we need to get that as part of one of these sets sooner or later. I was actually surprised we didn't have one as part of the TBA Sears approval. Yeah, the second two things, one, as we get into these restaurants that are facing, the exterior facing restaurant, it's with interior as well, but previously with the mall, we didn't really get into those employees parking too close to the front door issues, because the mall was the mall. I mean, maybe they did, but who knew for what tenant? So we just wanted to make sure that as we continue to do this, that, we have the employee managed parking situation like we do everywhere else, and reflect that, the condition that I read earlier with the Safari Kids, that they shall park in, outer perimeter spaces with the exception of anyone who has handicap placards. The second piece is the question that I know the planning board's going to want to ask as well, that any parking spaces allocated to Shake Shack shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board. The planning board is generally not in favor of individual tenant allocated parking, but if it does exist, we want to know about it, we want to see it on the plan. So that's a condition that is in there as well. Other than that, we reviewed it against, the approval that had a huge number of seats, and we've been kind of subtracting them from the large number. We're nowhere near filling all those yet. And the outside benches, as Attorney Vaughn mentioned, are not outdoor seating, but can be really used by anybody. So that's it, and we are in favor, and we have a decision drafted for you with the conditions that I noted.
Thank you. Before I hand it over to the board, this has nothing to do with Shake Shack. I'm very disappointed that there's no one from the mall here. The last time we had a different applicant in from the mall, we had expressed at that time there's a real problem with all of this strangely designated parking that's cropping up all over the place at the same time that half of the parking is blocked off because of construction. It has to stop. It's out of control, and they don't have the right to do that. They have to come back here when they want to change their parking. They have to come back to us and ask permission. So all of these new parking spaces that are popping up for expectant mothers and veterans and Pepe's Pizza and the police, they can't do that. And so no offense, you're not going to get any either, but.
Did you say police?
Yes.
Yes.
The police, as if the police park over in a parking spot. They park in front of the door because they have
Park
to go
whenever they
in
want.
quickly. They don't have their own park.
But there are some.
They have 3
designated
parking
spots.
spaces for Burlington Police and 1 for mall security over near Lord and Taylor that are set aside for that.
Okay.
And, you know, we have nothing against pregnant ladies or veterans. They're wonderful
Expectant
people.
mothers.
But if they are, yes, that's true, if they are handicapped, or if they're disabled, they will have a handicap placard. They can park in the handicap parking spaces. We have, how many Pepe's
8
spaces were
takeout
there?
spots at Pepe's.
That's ridiculous.
2 rows of 4.
That's not allowed.
Two rows before they
2
are.
rows
Yeah.
of 4.
So can you please put a message, send a message?
I will. Kristen did mention that to me earlier in the week. Unfortunately, Justin Feldhaus, he could not be here tonight. He had a conflict, but I will speak with him about it. I mean, just so the board understands, and I did talk to Kristen about it. I asked Justin, you know, I have the figures here. I mean, there's, and I recognize that it's more challenged now because of the construction and the fact that a lot of that parking has been shut off, but the number of spaces that they do have designated, as you just indicated, either for like for expectant mother, veteran, or the police or security, I
And
think the
Pepe's.
total's like 30.
Right, but that's not the point, Mark. The fact that
Yeah,
it's a
no, I
small
understand.
percentage isn't the
We-
point.
instead
If
of just-
everybody wants, if a few of them get it, next thing you know, you're gonna be driving through the mall, and you'll be like, oh, wait, I need to find the Macy's parking spot, and I need to find the Shake Shack parking spot. It's all shared parking. They don't get to divide it up that way.
Madam Chair, can we just have Justin come to the next meeting?
Yes, well, I was gonna say,
I
the
don't know
next
if that's
time,
through
the
Mark
next
or that's
time
through-
you bring somebody to us, bring someone from the mall, because it's not, they should not have to sit here and
There will be
listen to
another
this.
mall application.
He's already been informed that this is
There'll
an
be another
issue.
mall
So if
application at the next
if he doesn't wanna have to come to a meeting and talk to us, tell him to rip out all the signs.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of not wanting to be here. He had a conflict this evening, so.
He doesn't have to come, all he has to do is rip out the signs. Thank you. Sorry. It's nothing to do with you. We love Shake Shack. Okay. Jack?
As long as they have
Yeah.
those good chocolate chips.
This
As long as they don't-
This is in the main Sears building, not the TVA building?
That's right.
Kristen, was there something, no occupancy permits until the sidewalk is finalized?
The design.
Yes.
The design.
No, this,
It was no occupancy, no approval in the main building until the sidewalk is finalized.
and these guys have a long way to go before their space is gonna be ready to start building out, so
When do you retire?
we hopefully.
We're
will-
still diddling around about the sidewalk, though.
I don't know, we had a good meeting last Thursday with
Wonderful
Concom.
meeting, but we're still diddling around about the sidewalk. We don't have an answer,
We're getting there, and hopefully it'll be
Okay.
constructed.
but we're not there yet.
Not yet.
Okay?
Yes, there are ties to the sidewalk and Sears occupancies.
So why is this in front of us if we're not,
Because it's not an
sidewalk
occupancy
isn't done?
permit.
Because we're not talking about an occupancy permit, we're talking about a special permit approval.
They
So
can
you
build it,
guys
they just can't
understand that
move
if the mall doesn't get their act together on the sidewalk, you guys can't open?
That's correct.
They do now. So, no, look, I mean, they don't even have a building permit yet, to be honest. I mean, so they're not gonna be under construction until, they'd like to be under construction in October. So there's still time for that to happen. So I understand that I haven't been involved in the discussions, but I guess the town is before the Conservation Commission now for that sidewalk, and that's continuing to go through the process. But we're,
We'll get there.
yeah.
Did you have anything else, Jack?
No, that closed it out for me.
I really don't have anything, but I think that's such a funny name that I just want to say Shake Shack. Because yeah, I'm looking forward to when they get a little bigger. I can see the commercials for Shake Shack.
They're pretty big.
Don't need
Say it 30 times fast.
They don't need commercials.
Yeah, they
Joe?
don't need commercials.
No, I'm excited to have one there myself. My boys love it. I have yet to experience it, so.
Oh, Joe, Let's
I
take a
know.
ride sometime
I-
down to Cambridge.
Well, yeah, I've gone by them many times, but now I'm gonna be able to go in. All right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Big fan of Shake Shack, by the way. Will the exterior look like the one at Legacy Place? Because it's really well done.
It won't look like Legacy Place, but I can promise it will be really well done.
Okay.
And, we try to be unique, but still pull the same concept from Shake Shack for
Okay.
each store.
And will there be like mobile ordering?
Yes, there will be mobile ordering. There will be 2 cashiers that will take cash or credit. There will be mobile ordering, and there will also be 6 kiosks that people can use credit cards to order.
The reason why I ask on that is because Kristen stole my thunder with the mobile ordering. Would you be looking for a spot for, mobile, or, that? And if you would, you'd have to come back to us for that, just so you know. But that's just a real pet peeve, so.
I think now they're afraid to ask.
No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Bill?
Thank you. So when you mean mobile ordering, you mean like a Grubhub or a
No,
Uber Eats?
order online.
So
Order
do
online,
you
pick up.
participate in any of those?
For parking spaces?
No, just the
Uber Eats,
the Uber
Grubhub.
Eats, Grubhub, do you participate in that activity?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
So so then the person that's kind of the transportation piece is going to go into a regular spot and just walk right in, grab it, and come back
They're
out?
expected to follow traffic laws.
Okay. And I know maybe we should talk about kind of how we address that, just at a higher level at some point.
Yeah, I think, if we want to start thinking about, shorter duration spaces,
Yeah.
it's just the tenant-only carving out or group-only that I think is troublesome. But if you have a couple of spaces that are 15-minute spaces or 20, whatever, that doesn't, because just as mentioned, you have one tenant, oh, they have 6, so can I have 6? And,
Yeah.
it's
Maybe we should designate some special spaces just for all of them to use for pickup only, pickup spots.
Yeah, it
So
could be,
that
yeah.
they're not all asking, we already have them there.
Yep.
And they can be controlled
I
and
think as the
reasonable.
mall,
Yeah.
if we can have that larger
Well,
conversation.
The pizza place has like 6 spots there for
Yeah. Yep.
Pepe's has 8.
Yep.
On the other side, they have 2, but those were approved.
My other question is is there going to be any landscaping near the benches?
There will not be any landscaping near the benches.
I'll tell you why, because back in the day with Hot Shops, we used to have they have the benches outside there, we used to get our Easter pictures taken out there. And it was nice place to hang out if you're waiting for the tables. And, if you're gonna eat something there, and there's some landscaping there, maybe some shade trees or something like that, maybe that's an opportunity, even to buffer the side of the mall there. Fruit trees, yeah. I actually took a couple of blueberries off of off a golf course today, so I'm all in favor of that, Member Covino. But yeah, is that something that, you put, because you've got that Stark side over there, or is that gonna be a bigger
There's
picture?
periodic large planter boxes that are along that sidewalk area, from what I recall from the approved site plan, so there will be vegetation out there.
some
to
break up there.
Soften the appearance.
Yeah, and my last question is, I'm guessing, if I'm trying to get the bearing right, this is gonna be on the west side of the Sears building, is that right?
Facing Middlesex Turnpike, yes.
Okay, because I'm just reading an article in today's paper that talked about the hub of the renovation coming in 2020 will be a 1-acre park used for events, live music, and oversized games for people to enjoy. The park will be placed near the east side of the Sears building.
Yes, it's on the
That's the other side.
opposite
It's the other
side.
side.
That's the.
It's what it said, 1 acre.
Park area that's.
1
Yeah.
acre? That's 1 acre?
That's not 1 acre though, Brenda, right? Is that 1 acre?
It's pretty sizable.
It could be.
Where's it going, right in that hash mark? there?
Where the Sears
Where
pickup
Sears
was.
Pickup used
Yeah.
to be.
The other
Okay.
corner of the
Well,
Sears.
it wraps all the way around.
Remember where the garden center in Sears used to be? And
Oh,
then-
yeah, so that's gonna be the whole, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ernie?
I have no comments on Shake Shack, just a general comment that you could also ask Justin is, how the combined bus stop, how is that coming along? Do you know?
I don't know. but
Okay,
I'll find
thank you. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair, all set.
Okay, I don't have anything else to add, so I think we can close this one out. When do you intend to open? Do you have any idea?
After the sidewalk is finalized.
After the sidewalk, assuming the sidewalk is in before you want to open.
We're hoping to start construction October 1st, if we can get our building permit and everything in. And typically, construction is about 16 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks.
Oh, so spring, perhaps.
Yeah, I think before spring, probably sometime in the midwinter.
Okay, thank you.
Public hearing.
Question for Kristen, is there any language in there that lets them know in the permit that it is contingent upon the sidewalk?
We'll carry over that
I
condition.
would like that in there because I think we need the pressure on them all.
Before we close, is there?
How many years trying to get this done?
Just on that point, I just, my understanding is that the plans have been submitted. It's just a matter of the Conservation Commission approving them right now. So we're agnostic, I mean, we're committed to doing it, but we can't do it until
And if they don't like the Conservation Commission's conditions, where are we?
we'll have to work through it.
I want some language in there, please.
We'll carry over the condition. The discussions so far, and Simon and VHB have been, it's been going well, so I don't,
If the language isn't in there, my vote's no. If the language is in there, my vote's
the
yes.
language will be
In there.
carried forward.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, I think I'm ready to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
Also like to make a motion to approve the request of Shake Shack Massachusetts LLC for a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.9 fast order food establishments to allow for food establishment at 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit B attached and amended.
As amended.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
Welcome.
Welcome, Shake Shack.
We need to do
Everyone
the-
is excited to have you in town.
We need to do the minor engineering change,
Oh,
too.
sorry, my bad.
Sorry. It's fine, you just have to wait 1 minute.
Make a motion to approve the request of the minor engineering change for property located at 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall, map 46, parcel 24, to allow for the enclosure of mechanical equipment servicing the tenant space, the installation of exterior windows and doors, and the placement of exterior benches along the facade for the general public seating reflected on the endorsed site plan, Burlington Mall expansion, Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington, Massachusetts, overall mall plan, prepared by Vanass Hangen Rustlin Incorporated, dated March 5, 2018. The site plan is accompanied by an architectural plan set entitled Shake Shack Burlington Mall, prepared by Bergmeyer Associates, received July 13, 2019, consisting of 3 pages, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions.
Second.
All those in favor?
As amended.
As amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Welcome.
Now
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Everyone's very excited to have you guys.
Okay. Page 15, folks. I am looking for a motion to take items 7L and 7M together for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Item 7L is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.10, restaurants of the zoning bylaw, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall. Fungsat Incorporated, doing business as Karma Restaurant, is the applicant. Item 7M is also a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall. Fungsat Incorporated, doing business as Karma Restaurants, is the applicant.
Oops, you okay there? So when they bring in their ladies over there, submit them.
Good evening again, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein, here tonight representing Fungsat Incorporated, doing business as Karma Restaurant. With me tonight is Iverson Go, who is the chief proprietor, chef, and bottle washer, everything for the restaurant group. But I know that Iverson is very excited as well about the opportunity to locate here. We're talking about the space that's the balance of the former Uno's restaurant space, space adjacent to Pepe's. And they are looking to be able to occupy that space for a Asian fusion-themed restaurant. Karma Restaurant Group has 3 other locations presently, and I'm sure Iverson can speak to his operation and his involvement in those other communities if you have questions, but those restaurants are in Concord, Andover, and Westford. And this would be their fourth location. And they've been looking in Burlington for quite some time to find the right location. And this is an ideal spot for them. So unlike the prior application that was before you, there is no internal corridor that services this space. Again, it's to the left of where Pepe's was. So they are looking to provide a new front entrance door with a vestibule that would be able to allow access to the restaurant. That's shown on this colored rendering here, where they have this very nicely done vestibule that would come out in the front of the building there that provides covered shelter for patrons that are coming in. And to the immediate right of that, you will see that they also have a small outdoor dining area where they would have about 15 seats that would be outside for patio dining, seasonal dining. That is enclosed within a wall that's a bluestone wall, very nicely done. And we actually have a material board here if you'd like to get a sense of the materials. But I know that Iverson and his company are really committed. We talked about this the other day. Every time they do a restaurant, they try to look at what they just did and improve upon it in terms of features, design, finishes, and all that. So this being their fourth, they've got three to look at and critique and do an even better job. So, again, this is the front facade. This is material that they would use for that exterior there.
Is that fiberboard or cement board or?
So this is more like exterior siding. So it's very durable, 30 years. It's
Made
not
of
going to fade it.
Wood, composite, cement, what's it made of?
Composite.
Composite, okay.
Yeah.
This gives you a sense here of the interior finishes. Very nicely done, as I hope that these visuals would help to indicate. And probably should have shown you the floor plan first, but this is the.
It's late, Mark.
Well, the boards are so great and they have so much material on them, they're very heavy.
Very thorough.
Or our flimsy easel.
Sorry about that, all right.
They're the prettiest
So, again, this is the floor plan here. And just to get your bearings, this is the front entrance here, coming off of the mall parking lot. This is the patio seating area that's over here. And the restaurant itself, which would have a total of 161 seats, 15 of which are in that outdoor seasonal patio dining area. There would be a sushi station that would be located in this area here, and then, traditional cafe dining area that would be more relaxed dining atmosphere in that location. A room back here that they'd be able to close up for functions and activities and things like that, so. We are going to be replacing an existing grease trap that is to the side of the facility now. There's a 1,000-gallon grease trap, and we're going to be replacing that with a new 3,000-gallon grease trap that was shown on the plans that we submitted with the application. So, Iverson, I don't know if you want to maybe introduce yourself, say something about it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Iverson Guo. I'm the chef and also the owner of a Karma restaurant. So I built my first restaurant in Westford, Mass. Back to 2006. Before that, I was working in New York, Times Square. Personally, I got a 17 years sushi experience. I still got a few friends, very talented sushi chef in New York. They are Michelin 2 stars. So I frequently visit New York. Like Mark mentioned a little bit earlier, every single Karma restaurant is a little bit different because every time when I build a new restaurant, I'm not doing duplication. I try to upgrade it. I try to bring a premium experience to different community for the different clientele. I just don't want that people have the mindset thinking, oh, Karma is like a franchise. I just want to bring something unique, something more authentic. So the sushi, I'm very confident that the product what we're making here, and I really wish you guys can try in the future, because my sushi, you don't need it to dip in any soy sauce. You basically, we already put in the flavor on the fish. It's balanced very well. I'm pretty confident, and it's very unique. It's a fine dining experience. So I'm very excited I could be part of this great community. Burlington always seems to be a very busy place. So we're confident, and we want to do well here and bring some better dining experience for the people here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kristen?
As with the last application, I have similar comments about employee parking and parking signs, et cetera. This is a restaurant, not fast order food. We have had a lot of conversation with people who wanting more kind of Asian fusion, better sushi, so I think this is a really good fit for us. What you see is a special permit and a site plan. It's a site plan because it's actually increasing the square footage, albeit really small in the vestibule, but it is more interior square footage to the mall, so you jump to site plan.
What is that replacing? Is it green space? Is it, no, just the outdoor seating part? As it
So
comes out.
outside of Uno's, like, years ago, I mean, I think Paul and Ernie might only be the ones who remember, but we had a patio plan for Uno's. They never actually built it. But there's a deep landscape area before you get to the
So
sidewalk.
that's where it is.
So that's where you'll
Okay.
see this sit, right to the left
left
of,
Pepe's.
Pepe's, yeah.
So it's replacing that deep landscaping bed, but before that, there's like a service entrance there on the
There's
left.
an
isn't
entrance,
there?
yeah, in nature.
There's no impact to the sidewalk, so the sidewalk would not be impacted at all.
What else? Other than that, no, I don't have any comments other than, designated parking we want to see. Is there any valet for this use?
There's no valet parking.
Yeah, we don't have a valet service.
Can I,
If so, we want to know, we need to come back and we want to know about it.
with respect to any designated spaces, so this is something that Iverson and I have talked about, and it's something that they would like the flexibility to be able to have, but they would like to
Could you
be
speak
able-
up, please?
I'm sorry. They would like to be able to have up to 4 spaces for short-term takeout parking. If that is something that the board would be agreeable to. I know that it's somewhat of a sensitive subject, but it's something that they feel for, just given their restaurant, and I think members of the board would hopefully all look at your own experiences, that tends to be a fair amount of takeout that, for Chinese food, Asian food, maybe more for that segment than other types of cuisine. So I think if they could have up to 4 spaces for that purpose, they feel it would benefit them and be something appropriate for this location.
We can see what the rest of the board thinks. My response to that would be that you need to get them all in here, and we can talk about pickup spaces for all restaurants, but, we have 8 for Pepe's, we have apparently some military ones, we're gonna have these ones. We can't have all of these different people trying to read all these different signs, trying to find some place where they're allowed to park. It's ridiculous. So, are we amenable to having pickup spaces? Yes. Or I am, anyway. Am I amenable to having restaurant-specific pickup spaces? No.
Shared, yeah.
So I think you need to get them all in here to talk about their overall parking plan, because they keep making changes to their parking field without consulting us. They need to come in and let us know what their plan is, because it seems kind of like there is no plan, that they're just throwing stuff out there.
I mean, I don't think that there was any intent for the mall's behalf to try to go around any rules. I
No,
don't
they
think that
just-
I don't think they understood that having spaces designated for whether it's expectant mother or veteran
Right.
or short-term,
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but they know now, and they've known at least for a few weeks.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about all of them.
Right, and I mean, if you want to work with staff to figure out where we might consider either pickup or short-term 20-minute parking or whatever, we can certainly,
I like the idea
want
of
to condition
short-term
it
parking.
that way that we will work with
whatever
this
works.
Work with the mall
time,
to
but
do
you're,
that. Yeah.
you do not want them to be
Location
spec-
specific.
Like tenants.
tenant
Tenant
specific,
specific,
but,
yes.
I mean, if there were pickup spaces outside
Yeah.
here, they would just say pickup only spaces.
So there's already 8 right close there for Pepe's, right?
Right, which are gonna have to
We're
come
trying
down,
to
so.
modify that situation.
Yep.
Unless they just 8 become pickup.
I don't think they need 8.
Short-term spaces.
Maybe
or-
4 of those become pickup.
Oh, you've got 4 restaurants in that, 3 restaurants in that area, maybe 4, I don't know.
You know,
That's what we gotta talk about, I think.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sure.
sorry.
yeah,
All right.
because
And who
if you
knows, the
don't
mall
have,
might know of other ones that are coming that we don't even know about.
Yeah, true,
So-
true.
Yeah, I'm sure
Nope,
there are.
you're right.
if you don't have designated pickup spaces, they're gonna be parking wherever and running through the parking lot down to get there and so forth, so I
Or right up anyway.
take that under consideration.
Oh, yeah, I don't have anything against designated short-term parking or pickup spaces, whatever we decide to call them. I just don't think they can all have different names on them.
Each tenant having their individual one.
Well, they also have
Yeah.
a cheesecake. They've got some spots.
Cheesecake has a
There's
couple,
spots over there?
right? They have 2, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so.
the mall needs to come in
Yeah, I
and talk
understand,
to
I
us.
understand. So I'll certainly relay back to Simon that concern, and we'll,
I'm sure we can work it out.
Right.
We just have to not do it piecemeal. Okay, so where are we? Ernie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't,
Okay.
actually.
Bill?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things on the landscape. This is, I think the only thing I see here is a storefront rendering. Is that the actual landscaping plan? We'll have a tree on the left, and then there's small bushes along the center and then along the bluestone. It's on page
Didn't even see a landscaping plan.
8-3.
It's the same one you just put up.
Yeah, right there. Yep. So that's what, is gonna be some sort of tree there and then below?
I think the question is that a landscape plan, or is this just a pretty picture?
Just like a rendering.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Can we be more specific on that then? Would there, like a normal landscaping plan? That's gonna it would be nice and it would be breaking up there, I think. Okay. And the other one was, there's some notes on here about, so the outside patio, it looks like it has an operable louvered roof system.
So basically, we are proposing to create a brand new entrance here, like in the center of my space. We're taking the left building to convert to the outdoor patio. This area, we don't touch it. So there is some of the tree, some of the bushes existing. So they
Ah,
stay there.
okay.
We didn't do that.
Okay.
So this picture, this rendering showing some grass, this is just,
Whatever's there today. You're saying, well, that's whatever's there today.
yes, yes.
I don't know what's there today. I have to take probably a look at that then.
There's a tree, there's some little bushes up there. And there's nothing here.
Maybe Josh, can you pull up a, if that's you up there, just pull up a
maybe.
streetscape, we can see what's there
Yeah,
today.
maybe.
So again, my second question was over the patio is this thing called this operable louvered roof system. Can you describe that a little bit for me?
So operable, this is the idea. So it's like a shade. You can close, you can open up. So basically, it's just, the function is like a block sun of the sun glare, so that's why we don't have like an umbrella here. Just basically using this kind
Oh,
of,
yeah, there.
Protect from rain?
it's not designed for
Okay.
block the rain.
Is it just a manual pull and it's like a shade or? Electric.
So, right now, we are thinking using a manual. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bill. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you said there was no entrance to the mall, your only entrance is going to be the front entrance there?
Yeah, because when the Uno,
great.
it's like a 2 times bigger than
There's
that.
the tree.
Uno, the puppy, they're using the mall entrance
Yep, yep.
For my space, I don't have any entrance. We need to create an entrance for access.
Did you notice have both of those, that whole space?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah.
No further questions, Madam Chair.
So we're gonna keep all of this. This is,
Yeah,
keep
probably everything to
landscaping.
the-
Keeping the
everything to
tree.
Left of the awning.
What I try to explain to you, our front entrance gonna be right here.
Mhm.
So we're gonna keep this area as is, and I'm taking, this is my space ends here, so I'm taking this space to be the patio.
But we're keeping all the other bushes, except for maybe 2? Keep all the other bushes.
Right for the door, right?
Yeah, what are you taking away and what can we put in?
So I'm saying this area we might can do some landscaping, because we are not gonna do anything here. I know that this picture doesn't show anything here, but right now, it's just empty. There's no whole picture.
Bill, it seems to me the mall, because Barbara and I are, walking all, it seems to me that the mall takes care of the outside.
They do.
Because there are bushes along there and evergreens and everything else.
Okay.
And it's my impression that the mall does most of the outside stuff. No reason we can't tell the mall what we want there or what we would like.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And they're gonna be coming in to talk to us about parking.
So I don't know how you hold that on this application, because it's the front of for their entrance, so.
You could just say like a landscape plan, or like.
Why don't you create a
work with-
nice
work
elaborate
with-
plan and we'll
Work with
Well,
staff to
well, no,
put
you
together.
have, I mean, you have an idea here. We can work to,
It's reality.
Japanese gardens and everything else.
From here over Iverson, we're really not gonna have the opportunity to have any landscaping, correct?
well, other than what you see, the small in front of, some small
No, I don't
landscape.
think
Which is
that's.
kinda like the
If
type
you move it over more then, Josh, can you
Yeah,
just
sure.
move it just a little bit over more?
Is the wall of the
So,
face of the patio, the knee wall, how far back from the sidewalk is that?
How far out does a knee wall for the patio come?
Is it right at the back of sidewalk, or is it a little
So
past that?
basically, I would say the knee walk right on these rocks.
The white rock.
Okay, so it is,
Not gonna be the sidewalk.
right, but it is
So
on the
you're-
outside, okay.
but there is
So
space for plantings.
Could you do what's shown here,
What there's.
with some small plantings along the knee wall?
Oh, you mean doing some plans here?
Yeah. Is there enough room, the question
Then
is,
I need to talk to Simon, because this really belongs to
Okay.
common area, because I'm sharing partial of this space with my neighbor.
Mhm.
So I don't know what the landlord wanna do. I mean, if they willing to
Okay.
put something here, I don't think I have a problem with that. But I don't have the capability to do that.
Okay, I mean, your rendering
This is not my,
looks nice,
It's not
so
your
can
space.
we?
Yeah, because what you're doing is
Try to
taking
make
all that
that
out
happen.
now, and you're not replacing it with anything from a green space standpoint.
It sounds like we would have the flexibility of maybe taking some of that and moving it over to the side here.
Sure.
If needed, because, we're not gonna be impacting that area.
Yeah, where I travel around a little bit, you guys know, and, if you've been to Singapore, you've seen that they incorporate, they really push the landscaping and make it nice and tall and vibrant, where we keep on removing it. And my wife actually went to Georgia, she goes, oh, they got all sorts of trees and everything. And it's purposely done by the planning, and this way, we take away, we should probably put in,
Put it
maybe
in somewhere
enhance,
else,
right,
yeah.
when we can.
Right, and I think we can ask them all to do that. It looks like even if it's a small amount in between the knee wall
Yeah.
and the sidewalk, they can put small plants,
Yep.
flowers
Yep.
or something.
Yeah, grasses
That-
maybe, nice grass, you might have high grasses and that might come into play instead of
Yeah.
these shrubs here, which is probably, 1980s vintage. If you
Yeah.
talk about high grasses, maybe more in the theme of an Asian feel to that, although, that will,
Japanese gardens and things.
something like that, yeah.
That would be nice.
That'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should talk to them all about that,
Okay,
though.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah,
Sorry it
thank you.
takes so long.
No, I think it was a good discussion. Joe?
Yep, so I'm on board with that. I would love to see the same kind of thing, and it would be a beautiful entranceway and everything like that. But, so the outdoor patio, it's gonna have a knee wall, is that what you're saying, like a low wall?
Bluestone?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's gonna be open, so that wall will be made out of stone, bluestone, something that would be able to stop a car, right? So if a
Yeah,
car
it's gonna be pretty strong.
Yeah.
It's just not very loose,
Yeah,
you know.
okay.
It's not just like a decoration kind of thing.
Right. So now, and this really isn't our issue, but it's, the Board of Selectmen I'm sure you're gonna have a liquor license, correct?
Yeah, yes, we're going to be applying for a transfer of the former
Okay.
owner's license.
So my guess is that they're gonna wanna require some sort of barrier to prevent people from,
There's a gate into that area, Joe.
Yeah, there's just a emergency egress only coming out of that.
They usually don't like that access in and out to the alcohol area.
that's right. So, at least, separating the general public from the area where the alcohol's being consumed, right? So,
Yeah, there's no entrance into that area.
There's a gate on the plan, Mark.
Yeah, I think, Iverson, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of that is just an emergency egress.
Yes.
So it's not,
Exit only. and-
So
It's
how-
only can exit from inside out, not outside in.
okay, but the outdoor seating area, is that gonna be closed off somehow?
That would be totally enclosed off, so on our floor plan, you can see that all the patron or the guests, when they coming in, they're going out front here, going out front here.
So entrance to the patios from the inside?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we bring the people inside.
All access from inside,
Yes.
and then
Not
what,
gonna come down
and
front.
then how, but it's only a knee wall on the outside? Or is it
Yes.
something higher than that?
it's a knee wall. That's not really that dissimilar, Joe, to, other outdoor,
The way it is at
Patio
Not
seating
Your Average
area.
Joe's.
Tony C.
I'm sorry?
Not Your Average Joe's is set up like that, I think.
Yeah, sometimes they're just decorative planters.
So doesn't Not Your Average Joe's have a,
It has a little gate
is
too.
a fence, right?
Texamcal doesn't have a fence, they just have a gate. So
Yeah, Tony C's is a good.
They don't have, well, they have to have a fence to have a
They
gate.
have a gate.
You have to
I
have,
can't figure out how they get a gate with no fence.
Redstone's got one too.
Right, but usually, when I was on the board, we used to require, if there was gonna be alcohol served, that there would be at least some sort of a barrier that would prevent people from taking alcohol out of there, leaving with alcohol. You'd have, mandate that they have to go through, so
That would be the case here as well. The knee wall would operate as such. That would be the barrier.
But a knee wall is only what?
Well, we use the term
You're
knee
worried
wall.
about people jumping it, just walking
You
over.
put the drink
Well, yeah,
down
but
and somebody
bring
walk
it
by
to-
and take it.
I think what
Or
they're saying is they'll
take a
make the
drink
knee wall as
straight,
high
yeah,
as they need to
right.
make
So,
it.
In other words,
So
just
get the-
preventing the general public
I
from
heard too.
alcohol from going in or out.
Whatever we need to do to comply with the proper regulations in that regard, we'll certainly do.
Okay,
But there's
well,
no
so in other words, that will have to be incorporated into here, I would imagine, right? 'Cause then
So
we're
we're
gonna have to
talking
see it.
my knee, which is pretty high up,
Yeah, whose knee is it?
mine, 'cause
Your
I'm
knee.
very tall.
Well, that's what I mean. It's-
No, it doesn't.
I'm
doesn't
joking,
mean
I'm
you-
joking.
I mean, even sometimes they do like like shrubs or, a shrub barrier that just kind of prevents.
That
in
was
and
being
out.
discussed, between that knee wall and the sidewalk, maybe if the shrubs were high enough.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I
But
I
that's-
would, I don't know if this Board of Selectmen is, but when I was on the board, that's what we required, and I would imagine whatever it is that they're gonna require as a
They
barrier.
could make them put a little thing on top of the knee wall if they,
Or
a
something,
little-
right?
yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
wrought
We
iron
can
or
have
some
Barbara
sort of
stand
a-
up and see how high the knee wall is.
Yeah, but, yeah, so whatever.
Getting
and
too
if
close
that's
to
what
11.
Are you guys gonna have delivery as well, or no?
No,
No delivery, so
but
just pick,
we expecting we will have a lot of takeouts.
a lot of takeout, so pick up, not delivery, okay. It sounds phenomenal. I
Good.
can't wait
Sounds great.
can't wait to see you in there, yeah.
Okay,
Okay?
Okay.
Paul?
Believe it or not, nothing.
Oh, okay.
Everything I've asked covered,
Okay.
covered.
I have also asked, everyone has asked the questions I had, so I'm looking forward to finding it out. When do you intend to open?
We probably like early spring, I think.
Great.
We'll take you up with that sushi too. We'll give it a try. We need a good spot.
Yeah, definitely, I should visit. I mean, I'm actually, right now, I just renovate my Westford location. My first location is being open 13 years. Actually, I'm expanding my space. I got up the whole place and then redo it. It's gonna come out very nice. So the same designer designed this place, design Westford.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Burlington.
Thank you very much.
Let's get this closed and voted on.
Public hearing.
You want to
Yes,
close the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0.
Make a motion to approve the request of Fungsat Incorporated DBA Karma Restaurant for a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.10 restaurants to allow for a full-service restaurant at 75 Middlesex Turnpike, the Burlington Mall, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit C attached.
Amended?
Any amendments,
Yeah.
C? As
Yes.
amended.
Yes,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0. And then the site plan,
Make a motion to close the public hearing on item M, site plan.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0.
Take a motion to approve the request for approval of a site plan application of Fungsat Incorporated DBA Karma Restaurant for property located at 75 Middlesex Turnpike, the Burlington Mall, to modify a tenant space with external vestibule, an external patio with stone surround, a larger external grease trap, and a newly designed facade as reflected on the red line site plan excerpt entitled Burlington Mall Expansion, Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington, Massachusetts, overall mall plan, prepared by Vanass Hangen Brustlin Incorporated, dated March 5th, 2018, revised to July 25th, 2019, consisting of 3 pages, and an architectural plan set entitled Karma, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, Number 1, Burlington, Massachusetts, 01803, prepared by Frank D. Mileto, AIA, dated January 25th, 2019, reflecting 5,200 square feet and 161 seats, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions, as amended.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0.
Very much,
Welcome.
everyone.
Thank you for your
Thank you. Good
patience.
luck.
You had to wait a long time tonight, so I appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Welcome to Burlington.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Enjoy these last
Thank
few
you, Mark.
weeks of summer.
Thanks.
You too, Mark.
All right, people, we've got 6 minutes to get this done
Do it.
before 11. We have no minutes. We have other matters to discuss, though. Release of lots for sale, 3 Lexington Street definitive subdivision. Kristen, where do we stand on this?
This is the subdivision at Tom Murphy's old
Right.
house. This is as quickly as I can say it. And they're looking, they've been building the houses out. They have built the public improvements. We have reviewed the bond table and surety, and engineering has reviewed it. They're comfortable with it. And we recommend favorably to release the lots in exchange for the surety as reviewed.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Anyone? No?
No,
Okay.
this is Tom Murphy's.
A motion?
Yes, please.
Motion, the planning board hereby releases lots 1, 2, and 3, 1, 3, and 5 Murphy Court, and the 3 Lexington Street definitive subdivision from the conditional approval covenant and endorses a Form G certificate of compliance for said lots in exchange for surety, as requested by the applicant in a letter dated January 31st, July 31st, 2019. Thank you, Jack.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0. Okay, the next and last item that we were to discuss tonight is Airbnbs, which Mike brought to our attention. There were actually 2 separate issues that were Airbnb related that you brought up. One was a house that is not owner occupied at all, that's just an Airbnb all the time. And then you mentioned another one where somebody has a trailer in their yard that they're renting out as an Airbnb still?
I've heard that secondhand. I'm not 100% sure on that. That was
Okay.
That
just something that
was from
I said I could look
that was
into.
from a couple of years ago.
That's what I thought. Is it still going on?
I didn't.
No, the building,
Okay.
the building department has intercepted the trailer Airbnb, I know that.
So that's gone. Great.
That particular one.
Okay.
No, intercepted the issue, and it's not happening anymore in the
Maybe we
trailer.
can, did you get an address on that one?
On which one?
The trailer?
No, I don't have that one.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't have 2 residential dwellings on one lot. You can't rent out your trailer. You can live in your trailer if your house is, something happened to your house and you need to have the trailer.
I brought it up because I think a resident actually pointed this other house to me today, and I think it's something that the town or the board, or who, I'm not sure who, but we have to get a handle on this. We have to get some regulation on these things. Our town is zoned to the hilt. I mean, everyone's coming before us for special permits and site plans, and people are, these things are popping up all over town. One particular neighborhood I heard about today had 3 separate houses working as Airbnbs. I don't know if that's the whole house or part of the house.
Really?
And I think people in our town deserve a right to know if, houses on town are being used as mini hotels. And I have nothing against Airbnb. I love it. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to Europe last summer without Airbnb. I think it's great. I just think we just need some regulation. And I think if you own a house in a neighborhood and you see 18 different cars coming in and out in a month, then I think, people need to know this.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, but we already, isn't there a bylaw addressing that? We had an issue with someone on Wynn Street, off of Wynn Street on,
Thistleway.
We did, but the issue in that case was they were renting out individual rooms, and that
Thistle,
wasn't allowed.
one of those. Thistle.
Thistle,
Right.
Thistle, right.
That was,
Wasn't it the same thing?
well, this is whole house.
Or is it?
renting out.
So
I think
Airbnb.
the difference in that case, if I recall, they were renting out individual rooms, which
It was like a rooming
isn't.
house.
But Airbnb
isn't
can do
allowed.
either.
Yeah, I think we have both of that going on in town. I think we have houses
Yeah.
that are being rented as whole properties, and then I think we have houses that are being divided into separate
Right.
rooms. I mean, one house in particular was being rented as 3 different rooms, and then it was so successful that they put an addition on, put another level, and now it is 5 to 7 rooms. So, I mean, we've
They're
got to
renting
get,
out the individual rooms, not the whole house?
I think so.
Because I thought we addressed that, and that's not allowed, right?
So about a year ago, 6 months ago, a while ago, we had, I know we had a conference call about the concern about Airbnb or any of the room rentals. And at the time, we had rental of rooms, like basement rooms, rooms that weren't feasible
Fire safe.
to, I mean, they.
They didn't have fire escape.
They didn't have all the safety
two
things
means of egress.
incorporated. So at that time, we had discussed, if you were going to be able to you could rent your house, because, well, what it came down to at that point was renting of rooms was problematic because we didn't know if those rooms had fire safety precautions and all that stuff.
Right.
Renting a house, a whole house, you at least knew that the house got a CO, so the whole house would have been safe to be in, be inside. The camper issue we dealt with, but overall, we haven't changed the regulations at all. It's still a rooming house, you still need to have a special permit to use your house as a rooming house.
And they don't.
Nobody's coming in to do this, we're only finding these things out because of Airbnb and Craigslist, you just Google and like, oh, wait a minute, like, we had someone come in, what road was that? It wasn't Gloria Circle, it was, do you guys remember, we had someone come in a while back, for the rooming house special permit, and,
That was down on the Woburn line.
yeah,
off of Thistle.
right off of Thistle, you're right, it was that one.
Right, because somebody, right.
And did we deny it?
We
Did
denied
they
it.
withdraw it? We
Denied it.
denied it, okay.
They have to come for us to get that.
So we're,
For a rooming house?
but, and then the other piece of it is now, we are able, as of July 1st, 2019, we can charge hotel rental tax
Hotel room tax.
to all of these units. So I think it's important to get a handle on it to protect our neighborhoods, but also where we want to allow it, we have to know about it so we get
I would
the
like to
rental
suggest
tax.
we form a subcommittee to explore this. Does that make sense?
And,
The
and
chair-
luckily, we're not the first, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, I think, we just need to really figure out
Every
how.
town.
Now,
So
can
is
you-
there anyone who would like to serve on said subcommittee?
I would.
Great, Mike would. Anyone want to serve with Mike on the subcommittee?
Past your 6 minutes.
Can you restrict the rental of an individual house, a whole house?
The subcommittee's going to
zoning?
look into
Figure that
that.
Short-term rental, yes.
Okay, so
I'm in with Mike.
you're in with
Yes.
Mike. Okay, I'm
Below 30
appointing Bill
days.
and Mike to the subcommittee to explore Airbnbs and what regulations we can and should put in place.
Good,
All right,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anything else?
thank you, Bill and Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, that's right.
I had a long list, but we'll cover it next time. I'll send an email to planning.
All right.
Okay, a long list. That scares me.
Oh,
Is this yours?
But the usual stuff.
You want it back?
Motion
Next,
to
I mean,
adjourn.
next meeting on the 5th.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.